Mhm. God damn it.
Start the regular board meeting for MVLA High School District. It is 7:16 p.m. Sorry to be late. And would you please join me in the pledge of allegiance? Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? So moved. All right, thank you. Moved by Phil. Second. Second by Dita. Board members.
I approve.
I approve.
Thank you. All right, board members. Thank you.
Aye.
Yeah, all right. Thank you. Great. So please make a note that 4 of the 5 board members are present, and Catherine Moy is remote. There's nothing to report out of the closed section. There won't be anything to report out. And I think the first thing is we'd like to do some recognitions and resolutions. So starting so Martin, like to start us off.
Yes, thank you. Yes. All right, what I bring before you is a resolution recognizing and celebrating National Bilingual Multilingual Learner Advocacy Month, April 2024. So as follows, whereas Mountain View Los Altos High School District takes pride in joining educational institutions throughout the country in recognizing April 24th as National Bilingual Multilingual Learner Advocacy Month, and whereas National Bilingual Multilingual Learner Advocacy Month recognizes that bilingual multilingual learners are one of the fastest growing student populations in U.S. schools, and that this population contributes multiple assets to schools and adds to the rich diversity among students. And whereas 7.2% of students enrolled in Mountain View Los Altos High School District are categorized as English learners, and approximately 25.5% are fluent English proficient students, according to the CDE, California Department of Ed. And whereas National Bilingual Multilingual Learner Advocacy Month calls on stakeholders at all levels to examine the diverse needs of our student and our bilingual multilingual learners and to build an inclusive and respectful culture. Therefore, be it resolved upon approval that MVLA District Board of Trustees does hereby adopt this resolution to honor National Bilingual Multilingual Learner Advocacy Month and recognize the significant impact bilingual and multilingual education has on student achievement.
Yeah, for one thing, we're a better district because of having bilingual and multilingual students as part of our population. So it's wonderful. So, any comments or questions about the resolution? Okay, very good. Can I get a motion to approve? So moved. All right. Moved by Phil. Second by Esme. All right. Student board member, Katie.
I approve.
I approve. All right. Board members. How do you vote? All right.
Aye.
Aye. All right. The resolution passes 5-0.
Thank you. And our second resolution proposal of the evening is a resolution designating the month of May as National Mental Health Month. And whereas May 2024 has been designated National Mental Health Awareness Month in the United States since 1949, and whereas mental health is essential to everyone's overall health and well-being, and whereas a focus on prevention, early assessment, and intervention efforts could greatly reduce the number of children experiencing serious mental health conditions, and whereas children, youth, and adults can recover from mental illness wellness and lead full, productive lives in the community. And whereas Mountain View Los Altos High School District acknowledges that addressing the mental health needs of our students contributes to social, emotional, and academic development. And whereas MVLA reviews its pledge to continually assess and improve the range of educational services provided to meet the varying needs for our students with mental health concerns. And whereas the MVLA High School District recognizes that educating our students with mental health concerns requires a commitment to meaningful collaboration with families and community members. Upon approval, may it be resolved that the Board of Education of MVLA recommits our educational community to increasing awareness and the understanding of mental health, the steps our children, youth, and adults can take to protect their mental health, and the need for appropriate and accessible services for all people, especially youth with mental health conditions, and approves this designation of May as National Mental Health Month.
Very important. I have family members who are challenged with mental health issues, and I think especially in the teen years, it can be very challenging. So I'm really glad that we have opened on all this subject, and I hope we continue to address all of the needs for our students.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, so
I move we adopt the resolution as presented.
Second by Esme. So moved by Phil, second by Esme. So student board members.
I approve.
I approve.
Thank you. And board members, how do you vote? Okay.
Aye.
Resolution passes 5-0. Okay, on to 10.0 board member reports. Does anybody have any reports they'd like to fill?
Yes, actually, Sanjay and I both attended 2 meetings with the representatives of the city of Los Altos. The first meeting was with 2 council members, and the second meeting was one of their staff members. The principal topic discussed at these meetings was parking around Los Altos High and traffic on Jardin Drive. This is not a new issue. The current configuration along Jardin Drive came about in 2019 when there was great dissatisfaction with the traffic patterns then. Interestingly enough, people want to go back to those traffic patterns rather than keep the new one that was designed to improve upon it. So it's as I said, a very thorny issue. I know people will be here tonight to speak about it, and we'll be getting a presentation on it. And I think we are all approaching this with an open mind, but with a deep appreciation for the intricacy of the work involved in traffic engineering. And with a great deal of thanks to Stephen Son of Los Altos, an employee, a traffic engineer, who walked Sanjay and me through a mountain of data and discussed in detail the pros and cons of various measures to possibly alleviate the situation. But the bottom line that I came away with, and maybe you too, Sanjay, is that this is a very difficult problem and that any solution is going to leave some people unhappy.
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more. I would just like to add the 2x2 meeting we had with our district. Dr. Meyer was also present at the meeting. Was a very productive meeting with the Los Altos City Council members, along with their city manager that was there, and plus the staff. So we really I want to publicly thank them. They're the ones who ran that meeting, and I will coordinate a second meeting, a second 2x2 with them, maybe in a few weeks, once we decide on how to make some decisions as a board here, and then have something to talk about for how we would like to work on the proposal that they've given to us, to discuss it further, so. Yeah.
One thing I'd like to add, one of the things we had on the agenda for the 2x2 meeting with the city council representatives, Nisha Fligar and Pete Daly were the two representatives. And we had on there a third high school for the Mountain View Los Altos High School District. And of course, the reason we need a third high school is because of the enormous amount of approved housing that is coming down the line in Mountain View. Well, there might be a silver lining here for Los Altos and Mountain View High School. If we can ever get that third high school, we can reduce the populations of Los Altos and Mountain View. That means fewer cars, fewer students, less traffic problems. So keep your fingers crossed.
Another reason how our schools are impacted. Yeah, thank you.
I have a couple things to say, Sanjay.
Go ahead, Catherine.
Well, one is I had a wonderful meeting since our last board meeting, which is a couple weeks ago, with Bob Philstrom of IT and Miguel and some of the other team, and went over some of the new network infrastructure, some of the new duplicates or backup services of the connections to everything that the providers like Comcast and this NAT, as well as the servers that we have. Everything is so neat and tidy. It's so well organized. In a way, COVID presented an opportunity for us to recognize, if we didn't already, to tighten up all these things and make all our infrastructure work so well, and also have common logins to everyone, to all the different services in the schools. I'm very, very impressed with all the progress being made in the technology departments, and I want to thank them so much. And then the other thing is I had a lovely time at MVHS, Mountain View High School's Latinx Awards. I was already in Indiana for the Eclipse by the time the ones at Los Altos happened, but then the Mountain View ones were wonderful. The speaker is a former graduate of Mountain View High School, and talked about his immigration, very heartwarming story of coming to the United States and all the trials and tribulations he faced doing that, and then coming to Mountain View High School and having some great mentors at Mountain View High School, graduating and moving on to a really great successful career. Plus the dancers, the folklorico dancers danced, and so many impressive students got so many wonderful awards in the Latinx category. So both of those things were very thrilling things that I saw at the schools in the last couple of weeks.
Thank you, Catherine. Anybody else?
Yes, I just wanted to mention briefly about the solar eclipse. Unfortunately, I couldn't involve anyone here because he was not here, but my husband was involved in a citizen science project, which included a lot of girls and women in STEM. So I hope there'll be another opportunity. Obviously, they've done the solar eclipse for many years now. But if my husband will be around, so if MVLA is in the part of totality, you can learn how to do the telescope, and actually NASA will pay for your pictures of the sun. So really the only time you can look at the sun, you don't look at the sun except during a total eclipse.
That's great, thank you. And so we're on to student board report. Good job.
Past couple weeks have been a blur at Mountain View High. Many of these school days have had a special schedule thanks to staff meetings and SBAC testing. ASB's junior cabinet made it a priority to maximize our school's SBAC attendance and therefore bolster our school ranking. They did very well as we witnessed an impressive turnout of juniors for the SBAC, reflecting our collective commitment to academic excellence. Additionally, MVHS executed its annual Run, Hide, and Defend drill smoothly thanks to the concerted efforts of MVHS students, staff, and NVPD. Concurrently, our ASB students admirably managed the blood drive in the Aux Gym, which garnered many volunteers. MVHS ASB collaborates with the Stanford Blood Center for biannual blood drives, extending the opportunity for students, staff, and parents to contribute and donate. Furthermore, the visit from the Iwata delegation from Japan was a massive success, with the student-led rally being well received by MVHS staff and students. Just recently, MVHS's Science Olympiad participated in the Santa Clara County Regional Tournament, where they received an impressive 35 medals across 21 events, with the Black team qualifying for the Northern California State Tournament. With the return from spring break, MVHS students are ready to conclude the academic year with determination, gearing up for AP tests and finals before the summer of 2024.
Questions?
Yes, I just wanted to extend a personal thank you to all the high school students who donated blood. I have a family member who, my husband is still trying to pay his debt in blood. It's still not there yet, so thank you. You were saving lives.
Coming back from spring break, LHS is looking to finish the year strong. Culminating the film class available to seniors, we are hosting a film festival in the Eagle Theater this Wednesday and Friday during ACT, where student filmmakers can present their final projects, and all students are welcome to watch and learn about this class. The National Honor Society is hosting their induction ceremony for next year this Thursday night in the theater. Our NHS works to serve both our school and larger community through organized volunteering and is open to rising juniors and seniors. This Saturday, LHS Athletics is hosting their annual color run to fund next year's sports teams. There will be a tiny tots race at 9:30 and a community 5K around the school at 10. In addition to raising over $20,000 for all athletics programs, the color run provides clubs and individual sports teams the opportunity to sell food, face paint, and more in the quad before the race. The form for participating and donating is still live and is linked in the LHS Athletics website. In planning for graduation, grad speaker auditions will be hosted next week by admin and select teachers, and the form to apply to be a graduation speaker will close this Friday. Wrapping up the year academically, students are preparing for AP tests this week, or the week of April 29th and May 6th. AP classes are starting to prepare for final exams, and students are using the tutorial center and peer tutor resources to study everything from calculus to English to world language.
Actually, I forgot, I do have one report I want to say. So every year, Mountain View Rotary provides scholarships to our high school students. So this year, we increased our annual scholarship to $3,250, and we provided 3 high school students, one student from Alta Vista High School, one from Mountain View High School. So we notified them last week during spring break. Very proud of the students. We had over 60 applicants for each school. So a large number of applicants for Mountain View Saltos, and I think we had over 10 applicants for Alta Vista. So we had a great applicant pool, and it's very difficult to make these decisions, but it's great to see that we have a lot of interest in scholarship and equal number of qualified students that apply as well. So congratulations to the students.
Just wanted to say that Jeeves and I, Jeeves is my service song, you can't see him, but Jeeves and I have participated in the color run. I would not recommend it for a non-service song. He is a white dog, and for a few days he was multiple, and it was a lot of fun.
Okay, on for
Ella Persky shines as the April Student of the Month at Mountain View High School, embodying the essence of dedication, leadership, and passion in both her academic pursuits and extracurricular activities. Throughout her time at MVHS, Ella has demonstrated remarkable initiative and leadership by co-founding the school's Jewish Student Union Club, providing a platform for students to connect, learn, and celebrate Jewish culture. Her involvement in the school publication and her role as a speaker on 2 mental health related panels underscore her commitment to fostering dialogue and understanding on important societal issues. Beyond the school walls, Ella's impact extends far and wide. She co-leads a nonprofit publication, the Mid-Peninsula Post, where she effectively manages a team of reporters and photographers, showcasing her exceptional organizational skills and leadership. Additionally, her involvement in competitive dance and service on the district advisory board exemplify her dedication to both artistic expression and community engagement. Despite her busy schedule, Ella remains grounded in her passions and finds joy in simple moments. Whether it's seeing her favorite teachers every day or enjoying lunch with friends, Ella treasures every opportunity for connection and growth on campus. Looking ahead, Ella plans to embark on a gap year to live in Israel and explore the world through travel, a testament to her adventurous spirit and an avid desire for new experiences. Following her gap year, she aspires to attend a 4-year college on the East Coast where she will pursue studies in political science, business management, and journalism. Ella Persky's journey at Mountain View High School serves as an inspiration to her peers and the broader community. Her unwavering dedication to academics, leadership, and service exemplifies the core values of MVHS, making her a truly deserving recipient of the MVHS Student of the Month.
Congratulations, Ella. So as customary, the board would like to ask you questions. If you don't mind, fight with that wonderful thing. I may know your caller. Is he a tennis player?
No, he's not. No, he's not.
Long for. Hey, it's the board. Does the board have any questions for Ella?
Hi, Ella. I saw your name and it was familiar. I know it's in my inbox. So just appreciate all you're doing. This is, I think, the first time I see this many people taking pictures of our Student of the Month.
Yep.
And I think that's illustrative of how involved you are. One question for you, the Mid-Peninsula Post, I know when I was campaigning, students reached out from the Mid-Peninsula Post. I'm just curious, what's been maybe one of the most memorable experiences as you've co-led this nonprofit?
I think one of the most memorable moments was probably when I first joined, start of my sophomore year, so 2022 fall, and it was midterm elections, and we kind of decided to randomly just raise $8,000, $10,000 by ourselves, which took months and a lot of work. And I was just coming on then, so I was trying to get a hold of everything and create voter guides and distribute them for free to the public, in like the farmers market, community centers, etc. And I think that is the most stressed out I've ever been, even to this day with AP tests and everything like that. And it's also the most proud I've ever been. I believe we spoke to you around that time as well. We spoke to so many elected officials and people running to be elected officials. And I learned a lot in those first 2 months at MidPenn. And that's a big part of the reason I decided, hey, I want to keep doing this. I want to eventually help lead the organization. And I think it's really important because we have amazing publications at Mountain View and Los Altos. But it's really nice to have a nonprofit publication in the area that serves Mountain View and Los Altos students that isn't necessarily tied to a specific school. This means that we have the freedom to cover things truly non-biasedly or as much as we can. And it also gives us a lot of free range and decisions that sometimes just logistically in a school can be difficult to make. So yeah, I think that's probably one of the most memorable moments I've had.
It's so great to hear, and a period of great learning, it sounds like.
Yeah, completely.
Thank you.
Mentioned that you plan on doing a gap year and live in Israel.
Yeah.
And that's a testament to your adventurous spirit. I would say absolutely, especially at this time. What's happening
Yeah.
definitely says that you have an adventurous spirit. I hope you have a safe time. What is it that you would like to do in your year there?
To be honest, that is something I hope to figure out within the next few months. I'm going to be going through college applications like everyone else and just push back my acceptance by a year. And in that time, I'll also be applying to programs to travel Israel. Honestly, that's something that sounds the most ideal to me is just being able to work and be with my family. All my family is over there. I rarely get to see them, especially right now. A lot of my cousins are going to the army soon, and I think it's important for me to go to the country where my parents were raised and born and grew up and served. I want to be a bigger part of my second country, I guess, that I belong to. And
in regards to what I'll do there, I honestly, at this moment, I'm not sure. I just want to experience it, I think, in big part, because I haven't really yet, I think.
I
Yeah.
think it's a good idea.
Mhm.
Yeah, is your family or?
Oh, I wanted to ask you.
Oh, Jeff, sorry, you have one other question.
Yes, so I wanted to ask you, since we just talked about mental health month, what did you feel was your main message on your two panels about mental health?
I think, so I was part of the mental health panel last year and then this year, which was really amazing, and hopefully I can be some part of it next year. At this last one, a big thing that I was talking about was how this is an issue that's right in our backyard. Gun just had a suicide recently, and for MidPenn, we had to figure out how, if we were going to cover it, and it was also just as a student journalist, it was on my mind. It was really intense and scary, and it kind of brought up the spurts of suicides that happened in the 2010s, leading to a CDC investigation. And we often forget about that because it feels like so long ago. I was in elementary, middle school when it happened. Obviously, I wasn't there, but this really is in our backyard. And if we're not careful, it can happen right here. And so I think my main message when I was talking about what that was to remind people, this isn't just a panel. Like, you're not here listening to me talk for one panel. This is something that you should actively be involved in, looking into, making sure that your friends are okay, that your community members are okay, reaching out to people for help. This is really something that's affecting us right now and right here. And the last thing that we want is to see more student suicides for whatever reason, whether that be stress or family life or whatever it might be, to continue. It's really the worst thing that can happen. So I think my main message was just to remind people that, hey, this is happening right now and you're part of the solution. You can help do something.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm sure it was a great panel.
Okay. Sanjay, I just want to say one thing, and it's not a question, it's more, I just admire your tenacious drive to accomplish the things that you have and that you intend to do, and how brave you are in the face of the current world to pursue all these things.
Thank you.
I applaud you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I see you have some friends and family, so we'd like to provide you a gift. Thank you very much. I'll take a picture over there. Well, thank you. Now, Los Altos, student of the month.
All right. Los Altos High School is proud to honor Oscar Johnson as our April Student of the Month. Oscar embodies the ideal LHS student, academically immersed, endlessly curious, and ready to lead his peers and provide opportunities to those lucky enough to be around him. It is a privilege to recognize all of his accomplishments throughout his time at Los Altos High School. After taking journalism his sophomore year, loving the access to knowledge he got, and the relationships he formed with both administrators and fellow students, he decided to join the Talent, LHS student-run newspaper. As a news editor, he's in charge of the news section of the paper, managing writers and the layout of the monthly print issue of the Talent. Oscar is also the president and executive producer of the TED by LHS Club. He holds the producer license from the TED organization on behalf of our school, organizes events featuring local speakers, and distributes the recorded talks to the TED platform to be shared with the wider audience. In addition to organizing speakers, he himself spoke at a TED event at Gunn High School earlier this year on income inequality in the Bay Area. He's the president of the Investing and Economies Club at Los Altos, where he participates in the Wharton Investment Competition and Harvard Crimson Case competition with his clubmates. In addition to his work on economics through clubs, he was also a finalist on the economics category for the John Locke International Essay Contest, where he wrote and researched an essay about income inequality and the role of billionaires in the economic and political world. After graduation, Oscar hopes to attend college where he will major in economics and journalism. Through his classes and activities at LHS, he has seen the intersection of economics and journalism and views this combination as the starting point to bring light to a myriad of issues. For him, understanding how economies work is integral to almost every aspect of life, and he hopes to apply his studies in sectors like policy and healthcare. Congratulations, Oscar Johnson, for being our April Student of the Month. We are so thankful for all you add to our school and the impact you have made in our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Oscar. All right, so any questions from the board?
I have one, Oscar. I'm really curious about your TED Talk. Can you just give like a 30-second summary of your TED Talk?
The TED Talk that I gave at Gunn High School.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was about income inequality in the Bay Area. And I examined the case study of the disparity between East Palo Alto and Palo Alto. East Palo Alto being sometimes neglected economically, while Palo Alto has grown immensely over the years. And then I examined why this was and how we can adjust policy to combat and mitigate such inequality.
That's great. Well, I look forward to hopefully getting to hear it. I do extensive work in EPA, and so very interested. Thank you.
Other question?
Yes, I would like you said that you see the intersection of economics, business, and journalism as a starting point to bring light to all issues. So that's a strong statement. So I would like you to expand on that, please.
Well, with journalism, it's always about reporting, right? So you're trying to bring and distribute facts to the public and help them keep knowledgeable. And I think that it's not only just journalism as in the traditional journalism we think of, it's platforms like TEDx, and sorry to go back to it, but like events and panels where we can represent a lot of ideas and represent the community, and through those issues and or through that approach and featuring like speakers and interviewing people, right? That's how we bring light to issues.
Thank you. But I
have one too, and that is related to
Thank you.
everything. Can I go next, Sanjay?
Yes, yeah, Theta wasn't done talking.
Oh, sorry, I thought she was done. Go ahead, Theta.
Hello, my microphone wasn't on, but I think Oscar heard me. I hope Phil heard me, but maybe he's not been hearing me this whole time.
Great, Catherine, go ahead. You have a question?
Okay. It kind of relates to the TEDx. I want to listen to that one too, but your article you wrote for the John Locke International Essay Competition, would I be able to find that if I looked it up online? Or could you send a copy? Because that's so intriguing. And it is so interesting, like you have mentioned to both Theta and Esme. And your bio was read to us about the intersection between journalism and the economics. It's just fascinating. And I think you will, I expect to read about you in famous economic journals in the future.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And I can take you up on the offer for the article that I wrote, the paper, if we can get in contact after this.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you.
All right, do you have any family and friends here?
Yeah, my mother is here.
Wonderful, so we'll take a picture. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Mm. Mhm.
All right, so next, the superintendent report.
All right, well, since our last board meeting, we've had a lot of wonderful events that have been going on, and these are just a few snapshots of some of them because it's really hard to keep up, and I look forward to hearing perhaps about others that have been happening as well. So here we have the Latino Awards at Mountain View High School and the new Student Service Building and the folklorico dancers as they welcomed guests and gave out awards. And then Ella, who you may know, we just met, I wanted to share as we continue our student advisory for the district, the superintendent student advisory. We're in the process of recruiting and collecting applications, and two members are still here in the room, but we do have a short video that I'd like you to see, and we'll go ahead, and it was student made, so. Our student who made it is here as well. Kenya. I'm glad it has captions for us in case we want to read along. Okay, I think we're going to start it over in just a second. Thank you for your patience. It's always the tech videos. We should have just had Catherine read it. Okay, just a moment. Thank you for starting it over. All right, here we go. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ella Brisky, and I am part of the district student advisory board this year. So I work with students from Mountain View High School, Los Altos High School, and Alta Vista High School, and together we collaborate and brainstorm ideas on how to make school life and campus better.
Wellness and how to bridge gaps so everyone has a little access to education. And just the creativity and the excitement, the problem solving has really been encouraging.
You should definitely apply for the advisory board this year because you have the chance to make some meaningful discussion as well. You can see those changes apply to your school and then feel that impact.
All right, thank you. And there's so much going on, so we'll move to the next. There we go. Thank you. All right. So scooting forward, one of the other things that we've been doing, we've been collecting feedback for our local control accountability plan. And so once again, emphasizing student voice, we've been visiting classrooms. Here on the left, I'm raising my hand for some reason. I talk with my hands, and so does Ms. Spot, who is also doing the looking at how students can influence their own education. And the feedback was excellent that we received. Sadie appreciated being in your classroom, and Kenya, great job on the video. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, so one more, we have been doing a feature, and thank you to our interns that we have, and Kenya's here tonight, and we have intern opportunities as well. So we're recruiting for our tech interns, but this is the MVLA Minute, and in the past, we've shown this. And it's just a brief way of looking at things that are happening in MVLA. And here's the career fair, yes. Ah, great. So this is our sister city, Iwata, our career fair. And also at Los Altos. Diversity weeks on both campuses. Okay, there's our MVLA minute. So
From cell therapy to robotic surgery.
you ready? I always worry what the next thing is and I just cut it off right away. But anyway, to share some pictures, I like it when they're moving, but you can see Alta Vista has been doing, whoops, I think we'll go back. Alta Vista, yeah. Had prior to the break, they've been having so much fun this year. So thank you to the campus. Here is their egg hunt. And also they've had career fairs as well. And here they are with Mentor Tutor Connections, their mentors, really embracing the arts. And moving forward too, you can see some visuals of Los Altos High, their dancing, their diversity, cultural fair, their football team up here on the upper left that was in the town crier. They received their rings, so they celebrated. And then you can see some TED Talks, and in the bottom right also their Latino Awards. So a lot going on that campus. And then also here at Mountain View, you can see some athletics. You can see a field trip, the Sister City Iwata trip and the welcome and the signs that they left, as well as some robotics happening in the bottom left. And then just so you are aware, tomorrow night from 5:30 to 7, they're having a student art show at the Mountain View High Library. There's something going on every single night. And so we're thrilled, and you're invited from 5:30 to 7 with the ceremony starting at 7. And then here also we've had the Career Technical Education took a group to a field trip. They went to visit tech firms where they talked about what are some of the things that they do to build community with within their firm. So these questions here about communication and looking at awareness were created as a result of the conversations and what they watch by visiting their Career Technical Education firms. You can see Mr. Dillery was there. And then through adult school, and you've already seen this, so I'm just going to move forward, but I wanted to make you aware that they have YouTube videos up to watch as well. And so thank you to our adult school. And then also something extremely important. This is kind of a fun time of year to recognize those who have made a difference in their students' lives. And so the foundation has a tribute gift that they create and that they ask for recommendations from parents and families to help honor teachers who made a difference. And it's really a wonderful gift for a senior. But I did want to just give a shout out to our foundation who makes so many things possible for us here, including career technical education, counseling, support with STEM, and library hours and all sorts of wonderful things. And then lastly, just a thank you, and you can see that this was a pep rally and a lot of things going on here at Los Altos. So that concludes my report.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Meyer.
Uh-huh.
Any questions? Dr. Meyer? Great, thank you very much. All right, so moving on to communications. So this is an opportunity for anybody in the district, staff that would like to communicate. I don't see anything or anybody. Any? No? Okay. All right, so this is now the time for public comment. So anyone from the public can comment, on any topic that's not on the agenda. So if there's anything you would like to talk there, and I see there is someone. Yes, so Jane Chen. Yeah, hi. Yes, please.
So I'm Jane Chen. I'm a pediatrician, mother of three. And I'm also a member of the Family Partnership Council. And thank you for the opportunity for the council to comment on the superintendent profile. And so I just had a simple comment. The previous profile didn't include an inclusion statement. And so that would be something to consider, adding foster and emphasize a strong commitment to diversity and inclusion. And then just a very short comment regarding the integrative science class that I discussed. I had made a comment about at the last meeting, which was, this was an ELL class. And then I was able to understand from further communication with the administration at Mountain View High School that actually is specially designed academic instruction, which is lovely. But then again, it could be a class that would be available to all students who would need specially designed academic instruction. So then my comment would be, why is it an ELL class? Why is it not a class designed for all? So an inclusive class. And I was happy to hear that there's retroactive application for A through G credit for that class, which is lovely, but that wasn't in the catalog. So just for the community to know about that. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right, next person is Steve Oak.
Hello, thank you for letting me speak with you this evening. Mostly I just wanted to come, I just returned from the magical trip to Indonesia, the field trip to Indonesia on Saturday morning. So still not quite in this time zone, but I wanted to take this opportunity to thank the board and the administration for supporting and approving this particular field trip. I think in all of my years of accompanying people on field trips, this has been one of the most phenomenal educational experiences I think students have had the opportunity to experience. Just to give you a flavor, they were invited to have an exchange with an all-girls madrasa in Yogyakarta in Java during the fasting month, and got invited to break fast with those individuals at the end of the day. And then they also got to meet with a gamelan player who organized a street performance with the gamelan, and our students singing a song in Javanese with the gamelan, which was kind of an amazing experience on the street for the people who heard it. They also had the opportunity to, in Indonesia, disabled people are generally kept in their homes and people don't acknowledge them. And there's a collective of about 30 or 40 individuals who have purchased a place and are living independently. And students were invited to come and have an exchange with them and sing songs with them, have lunch with them, get to know them. And then there was a prison song project where in 65, in the coup in 65, there were probably, the estimate is upwards of 1 million to 2 million people were killed, and another 1 million to 2 million people were put in jail or disappeared. Those survived, those people who were in prison wrote songs to be able to communicate with each other. And one of the things the students got to do is to learn one of those prison songs, meet some of the survivors and sing it for them. They also got to meet with a pop star group in Indonesia and perform with them. So it was just a phenomenal educational experience across the board, wide range of opportunities for the students, the best thing I've seen in years. And I would encourage you to have a teacher come and share some of the things that students got to do and learned about while they were there. So I just wanted to thank you and commend you for approving that trip and supporting that educational experience for the students in the district.
Well, if there are any video links you can send us, it'd be fun to see some of those, I think.
There are a lot, the parents who are along on it have lots of video.
I'm sure they do. Yeah.
There's a shared album that they probably would be more than willing to share with the board. Reach out to Jill Denny and she can get you the link for that shared album, and you can see some of the amazing performances and people the students met. And I would say the tour company that she used was amazing. I've never seen full of service by a tour company ever. They had 2 cars following us all the time. If any of the students got sick or needed to be transported back to the hotel. The wife of the tour operator was a doctor, and she made a hotel house visit to one of the students who ended up with the flu. So it was just all the way around. It was a well done trip, and the students, I think, learned a lot in an environment that was very, very different from California. So just wanted to say thank you for supporting that and approving it.
Right. Thank you to let us know. Thank you very much. Okay. Is there anything else?
That's it.
Okay, perfect, great. All right, so next is consolidated motion. So do we have a motion to approve consolidated motion, or anybody want to pull from the item?
I motion to approve items 16.1 through 16.16.
All right, so moved by Theta, second by Phil to approve consolidated items 16.1 through 16.16. So Sadie, how do you vote?
I approve.
Michelle?
I approve.
Right. Board, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes 5-0. Thank you. All right, on to business and action items. So 18.1. So this is a presentation by the MVLA Athletic Department. Okay. Thank you.
So while Miguel is putting up the presentation, we wanted to recognize Nelly for all of your hard work and service. And I remember my first year, or when your first year, your presentation about, I believe it was space when you were talking to Los Altos High School. So congratulations on your retirement. It was a pleasure working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being so supportive of us. When being available, we have questions, and I definitely appreciate your support of the very good job. So.
Thank you.
We already discussed, I guess I get the clicker. Yeah. So again, we just want to thank you for allowing us to come and speak tonight. We were asked to do a presentation, so we put together this slideshow. And then at the end, if you have questions for us, we're more than willing to answer those questions. Here's our little introduction bio. I'm Michelle Noeth. I've been at Los Altos High School for 6 years, 9 years as an athletic director, certified athletic administrator, which is through the NIAAA, taking classes, LTI classes, which Tim over here teaches. And so this past weekend, he got to teach some LTI classes at our CS88 conference that we had in San Diego. So that was a big helpful thing that we learn as athletic directors is professional development. And I'm currently the president for our CCS88, and I'm on the CS88 association board as a VP, where we get to help put a conference on and do lots of fun and cool things.
Thank you for having us, but I also want to recognize my counterpart here, Michelle. She was selected the Jim Eccles Award winner at the CS88 conference this weekend, which is given to an outstanding board member. So very high honor coming from that state board. So congratulations, Michelle. So this is my 2.5 year, I guess you can say, here at Mountain View, as I got hired in January of 22. I have 13 years of experience as an athletic director. I'm currently in year 14. I'm also a certified athletic administrator. I currently serve on the athletic director advisory committees that deal with all the policies and bylaw things that they're through the technical section. I'm the former chair of that committee prior to coming here. I also am a member of CIF LTI teaching staff, where this weekend I participated in a course where it was called Current Trends in Digital Communication and Engagement. And I got to show off some of Dr. Glazer's wonderful branding. So part of the class that I talked about was our use of social media and using Box Out Sports, which is what I use for our social media graphics and how we brand it. And then we all gave a presentation on the branding that our school uses in order to draw attention to your athletic department. So it was very well received in the classroom, how far we've come in a short period of time to kind of bring that whole experience together at our site.
All right. All the slides. So one of the things that we were asked to do was talk about the flow of rules, policies, bylaws, and constitutions. So this is where Tim and I are going to kind of popcorn about this. What you see in the center is athletic directors. Between Tim and I, we both are at different sites. But if you look to your right, Fiscaball and PAL. So as athletic directors, we have the rules and policies of our leagues. We have PAL in there because a couple of our sports programs, lacrosse and our football programs are in the PAL league. So they have their rules and policies and bylaws. But some of them, for example, would be like never practicing on Sundays, or the price of admission might be different for our league compared to a different league. And then from there, the next tier would be the CCS Central Coast section. That is the section that we're a part of. That's one of 10 sections in California. And so as we move up the chain, they offer scholarships, but then they also have their rules and policies of how you can get into the different playoffs, their rules and policies of what we are and are not allowed to do. And they have their constitutions. And on their website, they have all sorts of bylaws that I can go through, but I'd save you some time. And then we have CIF, California Interscholastic Federation. And so at every tier, there's rules and bylaws and constitutions that CIF has an overarching bylaws and constitutions, and then it can go down from there. So schools can be more restrictive, districts can be more restrictive, they can't be loose. And so it's how many units you have to have in order to be eligible to compete. 2.0 is the CIF bylaw of eligibility for our student athletes, and that again trickles down to CCS, SCBAL, and then us as athletic directors. And one of the bubbles was board of managers. So we have our coaches that'll have their league meetings. I'll pick on cross country. They'll have a cross country meeting and they'll say, oh, we want to allow jewelry, for example, and that'll go pass up to the athletic directors to vote on at their league meeting, and then to the board of managers, which consists of our principals, and they say, yes, that works, or no, we're going to table it. So times for competitions, that's another thing that comes out of our league meetings into our board of managers. And again, there's multiple bubbles because everybody at some point intermingles with how decisions are made. And Tim's going to talk about the other side of the chain.
So again, we're still in the middle, but if you look at that, we also have the site that comes back to our district. So you can see there we have the MVLA school board and the district office, which we also have to deal with and that all that communications comes to the superintendent down to dealing with the associate superintendents. We're dealing with Terry when it comes to some of the academic eligibility, some of our students, our curriculum, having Mike involved when it comes to facilities and things that we need. And then all that information flows back to the principal who oversees athletic at each site. And then that ties in from us, and that information flows back down to our coach. You kind of see we get information kind of flowing out from both directions in this picture to kind of give you a better idea of how many people we have to work with in order to be able to put on a specific event or sport.
So there's a lot of opinions and a lot of rules that we try to flow from both sides of what we can do, from what our organizations tell us that we can do, but then also what our district allows us to do. Trying to keep everything straight sometimes is a challenge, but it's all good. It's all about good communication. So what we did was just a quick slide overview of both of our school sites. So you can see what MVHS has. LAHS, we have one athletic director, one athletic trainer. We have approximately 65 paid coaches, 12 volunteer, 28 sports, 58 teams. We did not put how many athletes because that's a lot. But just going back to that slide prior, is not only do we communicate with district personnel and then also our organizations, but then we also have our coaches, our volunteers, our sports, and just again aligning all of the rules and communication and making sure all information is getting disseminated in a variety of ways.
Yeah, and you can see up there, the reality is we run the largest department in our schools. When you talk about the number of people we're responsible for supervising and communicating with, over half our students participate in a sport at Mountain View High School. Right now in the spring, I have 653 students out playing a sport. So trying to manage all that flow of communication, all the different coaches and people and parents and questions and kids coming through can be a challenge, but it's been really, really fun. We compare pretty comparably. We have 73 paid coaches at Mountain View. I have 7 volunteer coaches, 27 sports and 53 teams. So we're both managing very, very large departments compared to most schools that offer sports.
So what we did was we broke it into 3 different seasons of sports. So fall sports that are offered. The list on the left is cross country, field hockey. Field hockey is at Los Altos High School, so that's an additional sport that we have at our site. Both schools have football, girls golf, girls tennis, girls volleyball, boys water polo, girls water polo, and then rally, sideline, cheer. And one of the questions was asked about cuts. I know that's come up to people, and so I feel that's part of why we're doing this presentation. What we did on the right-hand side was discuss, okay, what are the considerations of why do we have cuts? The number of athletes coaches can safely supervise, skill level of athletes, tennis, golf, volleyball, the number of athletes that try out for the sport. There's just so many that try out, but our facilities, the timing, lights, just depending on what season it's in, we take that into consideration. I'm going to let Tim go ahead and also share.
Yeah, so and every roster is going to be uniquely different. At Mountain View, we don't advertise anything as a non-cut sport. We leave that kind of decision up to the coaches on how many kids they can adequately supervise, how many they can carry. So if you look at that as an example, volleyball traditionally keeps a roster max size of maybe 15. Our coaches tend to keep 14. It's kind of more of the magic number for them. And a lot of that takes into account playing time and rotations. How many kids can adequately get out there? Because the one thing we know is if you keep too many kids on the roster, playing times become an issue with the parents. These kids come to practice 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, sometimes tournaments on Saturday for 8 hours. And if that student athlete isn't going to participate, it starts to become a negative experience for them. So we're always trying to manage expectations of the coaches to the students who participate and their parents. Right? Girls tennis is limited because of ladders, for example, how many people we can put into a ladder, how many players you can have around. Golf is limited by tee time and course availability, so every school is a little bit different. At Shoreline, we're only allowed to have a maximum of 12 kids on the team because of the availability of our tee time. So there's some outside issues that play a role in how many student athletes we can keep on a roster. And as we go through fall, winter, spring, you're going to kind of see kind of the same items that come into play in terms of how we do this. And these are all conversations that we have with the coaches constantly in terms of roster size, how many we can keep based on how many people sign up. I'm happy to say that participation of Mountain View is up over the last 2 years, which is a great thing. And it's unfortunate we have to cut kids, but we just don't have space for everybody that wants to participate in a sport.
So winter sports, we have boys soccer, girls basketball, girls basketball, traditional competitive cheer, sideline cheer, and wrestling. So TCC, they have a separate schedule than rally. So they do more stunts, whereas rally participates at the basketball games. So again, number of athletes coaches can safely supervise, skill level of the athletes, number of athletes that try out for the sport, the size of the coaching staff, facility availability, and then we had mentioned about the roster sizes varying by sports.
And winter sports season at both of our sites is probably the most difficult roster to make between both schools. Our soccer programs at both sites are elite level teams. Our boys soccer team won the Division I championship a year ago. Their boys soccer participated in NorCal playoffs this year. Our girls soccer team won the Open Division a few years back. Like, we are elite when it comes to soccer in this community. So getting on that team is really, really difficult. Basketball is another one on the boys side. We have more players that want to participate than we have spots for. Both of us do have a freshman team, so we can try to keep more players around, and that becomes a little issue with scheduling, but we make it work now that we've got that second gym, and we can thank the board for having that auxiliary gym built for us. TCC is a newer sport, as Michelle mentioned, came down from the state legislature to offer this as a way to try to keep the costs down for cheerleaders. I don't think we succeeded in that manner. It's an extremely expensive sport. But I will say that our cheer team did win a section championship this year, the novice division, which was really cool. Dr. Glazier and I got a chance to go watch the competition. And I will say it's the only sport I've ever been to where all the participants are cheering for each other to win. Like the girls sit around the court, they all cheer each other on. And it's one of the coolest things you can watch in high school sports to kind of see that level of competition. And then with wrestling, we have different, she can talk about her challenges, but we have more space in our old small gym. So we have 2 mats that we can use so we can keep more wrestlers than say Los Altos. So she can kind of talk about her limitations when it comes to the size of the gym.
For wrestling, our numbers were up this year, so we had a smaller wrestling room, so we try to also manage between TCC, rally, and wrestling all in our multi-purpose room, which is coordinating with the coaches about scheduling and how many hours they can be in there, because at the same time, we did have our boys and girls basketball teams that also needed gym time. So again, just expanding on that, it does impact how many athletes we can have in some of our programs. Spring sports. This is where it's like the crazy part. If you come onto our campuses at any point, you're going to see a ton of sports happening. We are going towards the tail end of the season, but there's a day where you can come out and see lacrosse, tennis, softball, baseball, and volleyball all happening at the same time. At Los Altos, you'll see gymnastics as well. At Los Altos, we host gymnastics, so Mountain View athletes will come and practice over there. So we have that all set up. And I'm gonna use gymnastics as an example. The coach had just an enormous amount of athletes that came out for gymnastics. She had over 50 athletes between Los Altos and Mountain View High School. And when you look at the multi-purpose room, having that many athletes is nearly impossible. And so unfortunately, she even had to have cuts, and she never had cuts. And so just the size of interest in some of our programs does, safely supervise, which is one of the 14 legal liabilities, is can a coach safely supervise the student athletes? Skill level of the athletes, golf, baseball, tennis, swimming, that for us is a safety. As much as everybody should be able to swim on a swim team, if somebody doesn't know how to swim, or their level of experience where they're not able to be in the pool for a certain period of time during a competition, that could be a safety hazard. And so a kid may have to be cut because of safety reasons for something like that.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of talk about facility size here, because it was a good thing and a bad thing. So I had 153 students sign up for badminton this year. It completely overwhelmed me and the coach, and we kept seeing these numbers come in, the kids that were getting cleared. We have 6 courts. There are 36 players in a badminton match that participate. So while we would love to keep everybody, we cut down to 60, which is pretty common in our league to keep that. Now, some schools have more practice courts. Homestead, for example, has 12 courts in their facility. So does Monte Vista. So they can keep a little bit larger roster because they have enough space where they can practice. But with 6 courts, we'd have too many kids sitting on the sidelines, basically just sitting around, and we're giving credit for that. So while it was really nice to see that many kids have an interest, you can't keep 153 kids on the badminton court. So that was a downside. And again, same thing we talked about earlier with golf. We're limited by the number of people we can have on the court. Tennis, some of those what we call country club sports, these kids have years and years of experience growing up when they come in to do that. And you kind of look at even our baseball and softball programs are moving that direction. Proliferation of club sports. These kids are starting younger and younger and getting more specialized coaching as they show up. So sometimes a kid who may be taking up a sport for the first time, it's really difficult to kind of come out at the high school level having no prior experience.
So this is where we get to brag about our sports. So as I mentioned earlier, that we have our league Skabal. So we'll have our league championships, and from there, our teams will qualify out of league to go to the next level. And you see CIF Central Coast section. So a lot of our teams are extremely competitive, and because they're so competitive, they typically make it to CCS. We can almost say that for both schools, you may have maybe one or two teams that may not compete at CCS. They just don't quite qualify. But for the most part, it's almost like the new expectation is that you get out of league and you go to CCS. And then the next expectation is becoming CCS champions. But so what you can see after CCS, you qualify for CIF. So what you can see is some of our fall sport accolades. cross country, both of our schools were state qualifiers. So they got to go down to Clovis, to Woodward Park and represent both schools at the state meet. And then football, CCS qualifiers, Los Altos were league champs this year. Our coach for football was PAL Coach of the Year. Field hockey, LA, again, we qualify every year. That is a very challenging division that they're in. Girls golf, CCS qualifiers, LA had Scholastic team. Water polo, or Mountain View girls were league champs. Water polo, LA boys were CCS qualifiers. Volleyball, again, CCS qualifiers, and Mountain View was NorCal qualifiers, which is a step above CIF. And so if you are in a certain bracket and your team gets to a certain to the first through 4 in that bracket, they have an opportunity to qualify for NorCals and compete against everybody in the NorCal. And then girls tennis, again, both schools were CCS qualifiers.
And you can see same thing in our winter sports. Our boys were league champions. They lost in the semifinals, so that qualified them for NorCal. As did Los Altos. And our girls team, Los Altos was league champions. Our girls team lost, unfortunately, in the finals of the Division II championship game. Boys and girls basketball, both CCS qualifiers at both sports. Again, our competitive cheer team, as I mentioned, we won a section championship this year in the novice division. Los Altos also took part in the competition. Our rally teams don't have any playoff type things. And then in wrestling, you can see boys and girls wrestling. We actually had 9 girls. We had our own little girls wrestling team this year with 9 athletes, which was awesome. It's the fastest growing sport in the state until flag football comes around. We had our first female we had a freshman qualify for the state meet this year. So that was a pretty awesome experience for them to go down and compete at that tournament.
What I did was we added the spring sports. Currently we're in league season and the playoffs are typically held in May. So come May, you're going to start hearing more about what schools going on to CCS and how far they go. And we invite the board that if you're around to come and support our athletes and come to see them in the playoffs. It's a fun experience, especially for our students. But like I said earlier, is that majority of our teams do qualify for league and qualify out of league into CCS. I could tell you that on the Los Altos side, I know we're going to have some kids qualify for the state meet for track and field, which will be at the very end of May. Again, majority of these teams will move on to the next level. And I just wanted to reiterate the spring sports that we have and how competitive they are. Coming to MVLA.
Okay, so here's what we got coming next. Both schools will be fielding girls flag football next year. Our league is committed to hosting it. I think every school in our league is going to have it. But we've got the jobs posted now on EdJoin, so this is going to become a reality. Once I can get a coach hired, we'll have an interest meeting. When we ran a survey last school year, I had 91 girls express an interest in playing flag football, depending on what season it was going to be offered. At the time, we weren't sure. It will be a fall sport. There was some concern amongst the state on whether winter's kind of tough with soccer and basketball and just the weather in general to play football. And the spring was a little tough when you got track and lacrosse, and field space became an issue for a lot of schools. So they decided to move it into the fall in this section. So we'll offer it as a fall sport. And we'll be filling that, talking about what else is coming. This year at Mountain View, I started an athletic council. So one of the things that Dr. Glazier and I had talked about the year prior was, well, one of the things, this started for me when I first got here. It's a much larger school than the one I was at. So I needed to find a way to connect with student athletes. Number, I'm brand new, but nobody knew me. How do I find a way to connect with people? So as we started having some of these conversations, the biggest reason we want to do is as Dr. Glazier came on, we realized how out of compliance we were with FCMAT. And where I'd come from before, we had a very strict budget process in terms of how we spend ASB money and such. So we've implemented that now at our school. And our athletic council's job is to basically be the governing board as part of ASB to oversee those athletic budgets and approve them. And they don't write them or change them, but they look them over to approve them. And it's been really interesting to watch the kids' reaction as they look at these budgets. So in football, for example, they wondered why I spent $20,000 on Spirit Pack. And I went, well, I've got 88 kids out here. It's going to cost a lot of money. And I told the basketball guy, I go, you wait till your stuff comes in. So when their budget came out, realized they spent about 12,000. I go 88 versus 40. But you know, our kids like the swag, right? So it's been an interesting process for them. I also share with them what we're spending as a department in terms of transportation and referee, so they have an idea of what costs are, how much we spend to run athletics. I think it's given them a greater appreciation. I'll let Michelle talk about what she's got coming.
We actually already have a student athlete leadership team at Los Altos High School. We changed the name of it 3 years ago. But one of the things that we're going to be adding into it is having the students be more involved with the budgeting aspect and kind of mirroring what Mountain View is doing as doing the overseeing, but they help plan the signing day. So one of the things that's going to be coming up is signing day, and that's going to be very much student led. We have a couple of students that are helping out with the color run. That Sadie, thank you for mentioning that. But it's very much student led. So a lot of our activities through SALT are student owned, student led, and been more of a support in that. Some of the, as I mentioned earlier, new CIF rules. I'm going to let Tim talk about football.
So this is a brand new thing, the Sports Medicine Advisory Committee that works out of state. So it's medical doctors and athletic trainers across the state that report to the CIF have been proposing this for a while, and it's now passed the Federated Committee. So there's going to be an acclimatization period for fall sports. Fall season starts August 9th, Friday, and teams are going to have very specific things they do to build up to competition. Is what the trainers were looking at is a lot of kids sit around all summer, they do nothing, and they show up for a sport, and their body's not really prepared for it. The weather's hot, and this is statewide. You go to Fresno in beginning of August, it's about 108. Right? We've been lucky with our weather sometimes. Sometimes it's really hot, sometimes it's not, depending. But we made one major change, and that was the start date for football. So football is now going to start Monday, August 5th within our section, because football has very specific acclimatization rules. All the other fall sports have theirs, but football's is unique. So that was one reason why we broke football away, to have its own rules. So when we come back in August, the first 3 days that football's back, they're going to wear helmets only. No equipment, no nothing. A maximum 2-hour practice, and you're required to give water breaks at least every 30 minutes. We give more than that, so we're well within compliance. But it's a chance to give kids a chance to get into practice with the helmet on and get used to wearing it, especially those young freshmen. And I was actually the one that proposed that start change at the ADAC committee. Starting August 9th and going through this acclimatization period, I didn't think it was going to hurt a varsity athlete who's experienced. But I have to think about that 14-year-old kid who's never played football. There's no feeder Pop Warner program in our community. These kids come in knowing nothing. And I just looked at this and go, this is a safety issue. If we had started August 9th, our kids would have had 6 days of contact practice before they played a scrimmage. And that doesn't work for a JV team who's learning how to play. So I'm really thankful that our board of managers was able to look at this policy and do that. So again, the first 3 days will be helmets only. The first 2 days will just be helmets and shoulder pads. And finally on day 6, then they can go full equipment. So it'll be a nice period of kids kind of get used to their gear, and then they can kind of get into practice.
So the next thing is the emergency action plans. This is where I'm going to brag for Los Altos, is that was something that we were already doing. So CIF has a template that they have on their website that is, who's the point of contact. But this is where I would say both Tim and I really heavily rely on our athletic trainers, is they will actually go out to a practice and say, okay, this coach went down or this kid went down, and then the kids actually put into action the emergency action plan, where they run and find the athletic director or somebody with the radio to call for help. And so if a student does get hurt, unfortunately, we've had to activate the emergency action plan, but I would say that it was ran very successfully. The students knew what to do. So instead of pausing and freezing, there was kids that were ready to go run and meet the ambulance at the parking lot and try to guide them to where they needed to go. So this is something that is now a CIF rule, and that all schools are expected to perform. So not just have a document, but actually perform it and practice it as part of their practice plans. The AEDs will become required to be within 3 minutes of the athletic facility. And that means that we're going to really have to dig deep into our facilities at every space that there's an AED within 3 minutes. And that also includes, cross country and golf. And so when they're out there on the course, that's going to be a creative, portable way that they're going to have access to an AED, which we're going to be looking for some budgeting items to help us achieve that goal. Go ahead.
We just found out about we knew about the AED policy going through, and we've added a couple. We put one on our swimming, on the swimming pool deck this year at Mountain View, and we added one at the auxiliary gym. So I feel like we're pretty good within the 3 minutes range. Softball may be an issue if the gym's locked, so we're gonna have to look at that. But at the state AV conference, when they were talking about this rule, somebody made a comment about cross country. Well, they run off site. Well, one's got to be within 3 minutes of them. So I don't know how we're going to do that, but the first thing we started thinking about was a portable. I will talk to our coaches in golf and see if there's one within 3 minutes of them at each course, we can do that. But it might be better for us to invest in a couple portable AED devices that they can take out with them. Coach can keep it on the golf cart with them just in case. So one of the other things that's moving forward is wet bulb heat testing that we have to do now. So the CIF is going to, they have some money, and so does the CCS. And so we're going to end up getting a heat bulb for free. And during hot days, the athletic trainers and I need to go out and test the actual temperature out there, determine if it's safe for kids to be out on the field. So the wet bulb actually manages the moisture in the air, the amount of heat. It's a more accurate reading of temperature than what we get from the news. So that'll be that's one more thing we're gonna have to learn how to invest in terms of, not really invest in. We're gonna have one. We probably should get a second one just in case to have it for multiple fields, but I'll let Michelle kind of talk about the air quality.
So one of the things that we have done previously is our athletic trainer, our principals had gone through and we came up with a little plan of what to do if the AQI got to a certain number. Well, now CIF has come down and said, okay, we're going to have a blanket statement that says AQI, if it's at 150, you cancel your practices. So it's no longer depending on your districts. It's no longer depending on your section and your league to determine what the AQI is. And this is another example of both sides of the bubbles that we presented earlier, was that our district can say, you know what, at 149, we're going to cancel. So we can be more restrictive. And there, with CIF, they left it open to what we choose as either a section or league or a district of what measurement we're going to use for AQI. And that would be something that we would be consistent as a district to say, okay, we're going to use purple air, and that's consistent between both sites. And so that's another decision where we rely on the district to tell us as athletic directors, okay, what are we using so we're consistent between both sites, that regardless if you're at Los Altos or at Mountain View, that when we cancel at Los Altos, which we did during water polo season, the parents got on the phone and they're like, oh, Mountain View canceled also, so I guess it's okay. So again, being consistent with that communication, and that's another example of a CIF rule that has that chain of command. And then again, from the district level, having that chain of command of how things are enforced. Looking towards the future.
Okay. And I have terms of that AQI. It can be a handheld device that measures it. At Mountain View, I invested in the purple air sensors that will get installed this spring. They're in my office. It gives you real-time reading. This year, we were very lucky that the church across the street had a purple air sensor, so I was kind of using that, but I'd prefer to have one in our main gym and on the field so we get an accurate reading so parents know this is what we're pulling from. If you don't have a system on site that you can use or a handheld, then the default will be Air Now, which is what the state has said you could use if none of those are things. The problem with Air Now is it takes a reading in a specific area. It doesn't need that's what your site is reading. So having a sensor on site would be much more advantageous for us to know exactly where we are when we make those decisions. Okay, so looking towards the future in terms of our athletic facilities master plan, some things that are going to come up. We're going to be pretty close to due for a turf replacement. Both turfs, at least the one in Mountain View, is 10 years old. So we're getting really, really close. I know when these things first came out years ago, everybody said you get 10 to 15 years out of it, and that's just not true. It all comes down to use hours, right? The more use these fields get, the quicker they run out. My former district, we never made it to 10 years at either site because of the amount of use our fields got. We're going to talk about some bleacher upgrades that we need. We're currently taking care of ADA issues at baseball that we're looking for, and hopefully at some point down the line, we've been told that maybe possibly get new home site bleachers for football at Mountain View, but I know that's years down the line, but at least it's out there. And then talking about just ongoing maintenance, I'll let Michelle kind of take that as she's talking about things they need.
So for ongoing maintenance, again, going back to bleacher upgrades, I know at Los Altos, we want to update our bleachers inside the gym. And then we've added nets at our softball field. So thanks, Mike, for that, because that was something that everybody heavily wanted. And then just a safety light installation at Mountain View High School for when people are leaving the stadium. And then weatherproofing various athletic areas, including the pool decks. I know that's one of the things at Los Altos that we, with the sun, the rain, having covered bleachers is something that would be very beneficial to the spectators and the student athletes' experiences.
Yeah, I'll kind of cover the safety light thing. It actually came up a couple years ago. We were leaving a Mountain View Los Altos soccer game, and Dr. Meyer was this, and Dr. Glazier, we were walking up, and when you walk by our auxiliary field and the baseball field, it's really, really dark back there, especially during the winter season when they're trying to get as much practice in as they can. So we've mentioned to Dr. Meyer, like, these are not stadium lights. I know how that went before I got here. These would just be some lights for the walkway, just so we can kind of light that area just a little bit to get people out of there safely. I didn't want you to think I was asking for stadium lights out there. I'm not doing that. I wouldn't oppose it, but I'm not going to ask for it. In terms of how that works. As we go forward with some athletic staff development, we're still going to talk about some ongoing professional development for all of our staff. I'm going to work with Positive Coaching Alliance next year to really try to make sure our coaches get that course in. It's been a while since everybody in the staff has had one, so I want to make sure we try to get that done next year. I'm going to encourage our coaches to continually go and search out professional development opportunities, whether it's meeting with another high school coach, a college coach. They don't really offer a lot of sport clinics anymore like they used to in years past, but if you ask a college coach, they're more than happy to give you information to help you out, to help get that going for you.
So also continue with the professional development of our athletic staff. One of the things that came out of NIAAA magazine that I read last week, which then now it's like that creative idea, is having an actual coaches workshop where we can go through the liabilities, human resources, here's the district policies, but then here's, you know, your practice plans and details of what our coaches might be missing to help them do not only their job, but get them informed of other things that they should be aware of. The next thing we have on here was adjustment and reallocation of staff hours based on continuous evaluation and data collection. With our sports growing and the addition of another sport, that's also going to be more athletes involved in our sports programs and in our activities, and just having a little bit of that additional support staff help clearing our athletes, making sure that their physicals are cleared and up to date so that we're not getting caught off guard with any legal responsibilities that we're not catching, helping making sure our schedules are up to date and the information is getting out to all of our teachers, our parents, et cetera, about what's happening. And again, just having that additional support.
Yes, two of the things in Mountain View that we'd like to look at as we start to collect some of this data. Number one would be maybe an allocation of our secretarial hours that Michelle and I both get. Currently, we get 10 hours a week of support. And I know my assistant Sharon works more than 10 hours a week on athletics. So it'd be nice to kind of formalize some of those hours going down the line as we get into things. And then for us at Mountain View, the biggest thing for us is with the number of athletes we have playing. And again, like I said, we have 653 athletes just in the spring. We've been lucky at Mountain View the last 2 years that basically have an intern athletic trainer working with us. So he's a young man that graduated from Mountain View High School. He was working with Achilles Walker, our trainer, to get his hours in order to apply for his master's program in athletic training. So because the program he came from wasn't a certified program, he had to do volunteer hours to sit and earn those hours in order to be able to go into his master's program and get his ATC. And it's been invaluable for us where one person could be on one side, one could be another with me. And it's been awesome to have a second trainer to get kids taped and get them out of the office. And we're a little concerned going forward if we just have the one trainer, again, with the number of athletes we have, that's going to become really, really difficult because we've got kind of spoiled the last couple of years with that.
What's also coming is communication. So one of the things that we started at Los Altos High School is streamlining that all of our spring coaches are using Parent Square as far as their communication to the student athletes and to the parents. And going into the next school year, it'll be all of our coaches. So instead of WhatsApp and Band, Sports U, all these other miscellaneous, it's now streamlining and saying, okay, parents, this is how you're going to get communication from our athletic department, from our coaches. If you want to email our coaches, it's through Parent Square. And so that's something that our coaches will be trained on. And I'm looking forward to it because as an athletic director, I can see what messaging is going out to the parents and what messaging is going out to our student athletes. So it does help with a little bit of that oversight to make sure that conversations are appropriate.
So we got all of our winter, like I said, we got all of our spring teams on it. And then as we start to transition in next year, I'm going to work with the IT department to offer a couple formal trainings to our staff to kind of get them on board. Because I know I've been told that it's a much more powerful system than where we're sending messages. You can put team calendars on there and things of that sort. So we're going to need, as we move away from some of those other apps that coaches were using, be able to give a place for them to be able to put their calendars. Parents could look at what time practice is, when's the game at. So there's some things we still need to learn in terms of that. And I think it'd be better if we get all of our coaches trained to kind of learn how that system works appropriately.
And the other part of for Los Altos is each season we'll have a sportsmanship night to kind of go over those Parent Square communications, eligibility rules, what parents can expect from their coaches and what coaches can expect from the parents and the student athletes. And with that, we would like to thank you for our athletic boosters for their unwavering support of athletics, DTA in the district for supporting our full-time position. This was the first year that Tim and I got to be full-time athletic directors. And at the conference this past weekend, it's amazing how many athletic directors have full loads of classes and still trying to do the position. And there was a really cool slide that they had. They had four presentations for superintendents, principals, and administrators. So next year, I highly recommend you go because now there's a track for everybody in the upper management. But one of the things that came out of it was they had a picture of the athletic director and all of the different things that now ADs are responsible for. And with your support of having us be full-time allows us to put this presentation together and really be thoughtful about the decisions that we're trying to make in the best interest of our student athletes, supporting our coaches, and supporting our staff, and really just trying to get things more streamlined between both sides. And it's really been a pleasure to work with Tim and having that collaboration time throughout this school year.
I'll just add on that. My former district, I was very collaborative with the AD at the other school because the one thing like this, they're very tight-knit communities. And the one thing we didn't ever want is someone to go, well, they do it over there. How come we can't? No, they don't do that over there. And I know that for a fact, right? So as we collaborate more and align our policies and things of that sort, it's going to make life easier for both of us to be able to go, no, that's not how Los Altos does it, because we do it the same way. So we've developed a really good working relationship. Brian Seymour, our assistant director of the CIF, I got a little shout out. Him and I were talking after my LTI class, and some of you read, there's a couple articles going around the Mercury News about an AD in another district who was released at two different districts. So reporter from the Mercury News called me last week and said, hey, we want to write a story on this, but none of us really know what an AD does. So Darren, the head writer, said, call Lugo. He's been doing this a while. So Joe's the one that came out and covered the story about the Daniels family. So we've come pretty close over the last couple of months, just talking about various things in high school sports. And he says, well, can you tell me what your job really is? And I go, well, how much time do you have? And so I started laying some of this out. So I'm gonna kind of take you through a typical day and the kind of things I do. And I started going, he stops, goes, wait. You do all that? Yeah, I'm not done yet. And I kept going. And his answer was, why does anybody want to do that job? And I said, call it corny. I still believe in educational-based athletics. I believe in this is a way that we can change the lives of our student athletes, and that's why I do it. Well, they don't pay you enough, whatever it is. So I told that story to Brian Seymour, and he gave me a shout out talking about that. And everybody in the room laughed. I'm like, God, we do kind of have a crazy job, but we love it. It's why we come to work every day, and it's why we are excited for whatever comes next. So if you have any questions for us, we're happy to answer.
Well, thank you very much, Michelle and Tim. Appreciate that very much. Thank you. And I do think the board does have some questions, as well as maybe the student board members. So any questions from the board?
Yes, I have a comment. First of all, I'm so glad you're moving to parent square, and also that you're doing climatization. You mentioned football, but actually I think of cross country, and if you don't start running in the summer, you are hosed. And I actually had that experience with a child who shall not be named, but she did not get communication from the cross country department just due to, you know, I don't know if you remember, there were all these different mailing lists or whatever. So now there's this one-stop shop. I think it's just a lot easier to say, go to Parent Square, look there. So I think that's so important to have that acclimatization. And to follow up with football, I wanted to ask you how the pilot program was going with the football helmets.
Okay, you can do that. So, first off, thanks for the question, and cross country is a big one. So one of the things that Parent Square is going to do is we have an 8th grade sports night that we'll do in May, and in all my communications, we're not allowed to communicate with 8th grade families until May 1st as a section policy. So I've already got my stuff that I'm putting together to send out on May 1st. And one of the things we're going to do is give them the link to follow the community group on Parent Square if you want information on these sports, which will help get that information out to those cross-country runners or whatever it might be, right? Because you're right, you can't get off the couch in August and go run in that hot weather and make it. You're just not going to. The pilot program for the Axiom helmets was outstanding this year. We're in the process of purchasing 9 more to outfit our kids. So for those of you who didn't know, the Axiom helmet is made by Rydell. We scan the student's head, so this helmet is made to fit their head perfectly. So what they found is if the helmet is fit more correctly, it reduces the chance of brain damage during impact. And they've added different portions of the helmet. If it was one here, I could explain it better in terms of where their impact points are. So this helmet actually has one on the back of the head, which no other helmet does. So if you happen to go down and hit the head, the little flap in the helmet will bend, which sends the force of the impact out. So we had great success with it. Our kids loved it. And they have a really good deal to buy 9 for $5,000. So we're going to find a way to come up with the money and get those bought. We did have 4 parents last year who inquired and bought one for their own kids to keep after they get out of high school. So it's very popular. The data we're trying to pull. We did have some issues connecting the helmets to the handheld. If the kids didn't come into the training office for a couple of days, some of that data didn't sync. So Rydell's actually in the process of trying to pull that out of the helmets now that they have them for reconditioning. But Rydell's coming up with a solution that they're trying to make like a check-in waiver, or I don't know, we call it like a router. So we'll stick them by the doors when the kids walk out of the locker room. So they come out of the varsity or JV team room, they walk by that router, it connects to the handheld through the system, and that'll be a more consistent way for us to get the data from those helmets. But all of our helmets have an impact sensor at Mountain View, just those Axioms are a step up. So one of the things they can do that you asked is, so every practice I sent my practice schedule to Achilles, our trainer, and Achilles uploads that Excel spreadsheet into their system. So he can look at the data and go, hey, there's a lot of head contact in periods 17, 18. What are you doing? And he can look at my practice plan and see what we're doing, right? And then if we start having too many, we can adjust our practice. And usually when it happens is when we don't have, one thing we found is it usually tends to have more head contacts when we're not going full contact because our kids get lazy with their technique. So it's a way for us to reemphasize to them, just because we're not going live and hitting, your technique can't break down ever. You got to be good at the things we're teaching you to do by taking your head out of the block or head out of the tackle. So they're going great. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one other question, which is a more difficult question, which is about intramural soccer, which is something that was in a letter that was sent several years ago. I know field space is really difficult. I guess my question is, what would it take to do it? Because I mean, as you said, our regular soccer teams are elite. So an intramural soccer would not be elite. It would be, I guess you would still have to have cuts, but it wouldn't be based on being an elite player.
Yeah, are you talking about like at lunchtime?
Lunchtime
because honestly, after school, there would be no facilities available for that.
Okay, yeah, maybe at lunchtime. Because if it's intramural, it doesn't need to be, you know, with a formal league, right?
Yeah, throughout the school year, our ASB will plan different tournament activities. They'll do a badminton tournament, they'll do a soccer tournament, they've done a flag football tournament. So ASB kind of has taken the lead of doing that kind of stuff. After school, like Tim said, it's nearly impossible unless they wanted to go on a Sunday when the fields are not being used. But if they wanted to do something during lunchtime, I would just take an advisor to kind of structure and organize that.
I think that's what they're asking for, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah,
But
well,
yeah.
then, like I said, it must be, that's never been brought to me. And then the other concern is it would have to be extremely informal, because if we're talking about more competitive level intramural, are we gonna require them to get physicals, and who's gonna manage all that, right? And that's, so I'd be happy to talk about it, but I just think it'd have to be more outlined in terms of what our expectations would be for that.
So what, I guess that is a good question, is at what level do you require a physical? Is it a certain
If they're
number of
playing a
hours?
CNF sport, that's the. Ed code.
Okay, so if you're just playing, say Mountain View versus Los Altos, that wouldn't count as a, that
No, as long
wouldn't
as it's
count
not
as
a
a,
team, but then again, you're worried about if it's a competition, are you gonna have officials who's supervising that?
okay.
I mean, there's a lot of things that go into that, yeah, how are we
Yeah,
gonna get them there,
okay.
transportation, so.
Okay, thank you.
Catherine, you have a question?
I do a couple. I'm going to tell you all three of my points and then they can answer. One is the budgets. I'm so glad that, first of all, great presentation and great organization for understanding how it all fits together. I appreciate it from both of you. The second, as I'm sure the whole board does, the budgets you were talking about and the FIGMAT, whatever that is, and ASB being involved in that. But then how does Sports Booster and Sports Booster money interact with that? That's one question, but just wait, because I want to ask you another one. The other one is kind of with what Thea said about, well, the cuts and stuff, but inclusion for English learners, for immigrants, for people that were cut. Is there other sports activities or you know, city-based things or whatever you could refer people to and so on? And then, and how does pickleball, which is kind of a pickup game sort of thing that you guys do, fit into all that? That's my second question. My third one is I really appreciate the thing with Parent Square and everything with communication, but I think maybe a nice thing to do would be to kind of warn all students in coming to high school, and even the ones that are already there but have never done a sport or come in, you know, to one of the, not the fall sports, but the winter or the spring, and they come in. And I feel like some parents, back when I was a PTA president a little while back, they were like blown away by the kind of commitment it requires, as in, no, you don't really get a spring break because you're going to have to practice during spring break, or you don't really get a whole 2 weeks off to go skiing or somewhere in the winter if you're in this a sport that's going to just start or be in that period, because you're going to have practices, and the repercussions for skipping practices and stuff like that, no matter what sport you're in. Some sort of like warning that this is not, we're not in grade school anymore, you know, where this is stepping it up, and kind of warn people before they enter a sport. So those are my three questions or statements.
You take that,
Yeah,
I'll take the budget.
yeah, I was gonna say, see right there. All right, so talking about the last thing you mentioned in regards to the commitment of spring break, that's one of the reasons why, at least for Los Altos, we were gonna have more of the sportsmanship nights to go over those kind of things. After school sports is more of a privilege. It's a commitment that you're choosing to do. You're choosing to go out for the tennis team. You're choosing to go out for football. And we feel that's a commitment that you're making to that particular sport at that time. We do have coaches that have because of how MVLA works, where a lot of our families do go out of town, that over the years, when we're hiring our coaches, we've had conversations that, hey, we do have a lot of families that go out of town during breaks and whatnot. And so a lot of, I feel, coaches have become more and more cognizant of the time of finals and during those breaks. And so we try not to schedule games. So therefore, it's not a stressor for the kids if they do go on vacation, that when they come back from vacation, they may have to adjust and get back into that routine of sports. So we have been working with our coaches when those things do arise. And as regards to, you mentioned the ELL students and how that works and their opportunities. I can mention that this past year, I work with our ELL coordinator, Jose, he's amazing. And he'll bring students that are brand new to the school. He'll do a quick introduction. We go over, here's how you get cleared to participate in a sport. And then he'll help them with getting the physical and getting the paperwork so that they can try out for the sport when the sport of their choosing does come up. But then this year, we've had a lot of students come out for soccer. And so we were able to have a freshman soccer team that did comprise of more of our EL students. And so we do try to be creative and have some of those thoughtful conversations with our coaches about that. So we do try to work on the inclusion aspect of our teams. And again, kind of going back to our original presentation, is sometimes that safety aspect does take a role in whether or not that student can continue to be on the team or make the team in the first place. And introducing intramural sports, that would be working with ASB and other leadership groups to maybe have that during lunchtime before seasons begin, so students get some of those touches that they need for their sports. So I hope I answered part of what you're asking about, and I'm going to give Tim the budgeting one.
Yeah, and then just kind of talk about, as you were talking, Catherine, about the vacations and breaks over the winter. Those are our league schedules, unfortunately. So our soccer and basketball teams always play that first week in January. So the second week of that December break, they got league games to play. And that's done by the league. And I hate to say this, we have to work our calendars backwards. So when the state went to statewide playoffs, they set the dates for their playoff events. And as a league, we have to work backwards to fit our league games into the amount of time that we have. So while we'd all like to have that 2 weeks off, me included, because I'm back to work that week, right? There's only so many weeks of the year to get those number of games. And so we're kind of hampered by state playoffs and,
You just need to warn them, I'm thinking. But
No,
then
so-
in terms of the budgets with sports boosters and
Yeah, and
all.
I'll cover the budget. So just, so when I do my 8th grade sports night, that is one of my presentations to parents, and the parents who don't make it, I send a parent square message out and I attach my slides. So I do talk about the commitment of playing a high school sport that is 5 or 6 days a week, 2 hours a day, right? And I tell parents, if you can't commit to that, stay in a PE class. It's 3 days a week and you're 2.5 hours and you're done. So we do try to talk about it as best we can. I think you're right. Sometimes parents get in, they don't really understand the commitment level that it takes. We had a kid that we had to remove from our tennis team because he took a part-time job, and coach, I'm going to miss every Tuesday and Thursday. Well, those aren't match days. It's going to be kind of hard to do that. So mom's a little upset because she didn't understand, but I'm like, he's going to miss every match. Like, you can't be on the team if you're going to miss every match, especially when you're like our 3 singles player. So those are some hard conversations we have to have. Now, to answer your question, the boosters are totally separate from our ASB money. So what FCMAT does, FCMAT is the fiscal control team that works with educational organizations to make sure they're in compliance with how ASB money is spent. So basically what our coaches do is they create a budget of things that they're going to need this year, put that on a budget, any projected income through fundraisers or Christmas tree lot or whatever we do through the boosters that are going to go in their account. And the kids vote on to approve that budget for the year. And as these bills come in, I approve them looking at the budget. Mr. Rebel's the second set of eyes to do that. So one of the things it does is cover us legally as a district that we aren't spending any money out of ASB that hasn't been approved by our students. And so that's how thick that works for us to get into compliance with that. It's detailed, it's hard. I mean, there's times you have to go back and, your budget didn't cover that. So the kids have to go back and have another meeting and submit a document, and they sign, and their officers sign off that they've done that. And that's one reason we have the athletic council. Instead of having each team be its own ASB club, they're working under the umbrella of the athletic council. So they have representatives on every team has a representative on that council to oversee those budgets in terms of what we're doing. So it's a pretty lengthy process, but, as we know in education, messing with the ASB money is one of the things that gets you fired and in jail, and I'm not interested in either one of those things, so we're gonna make sure we keep that in line with what we do.
And,
Yeah, I think both Theta and Catherine kind of spoke on one of the questions I had, so maybe I'll just make a statement that I was really impressed by the number of students who are just impacted by the extensive list of sports season by season. And the one concern I had is probably similar to Catherine and Theta's is just how inclusive are sports. When I hear that, it's a really competitive to make it onto various teams. I think about, what students need to show up with, and it's probably extensive years of playing competitively and who has access to that. And so I would encourage and strongly suggest that we continue to get creative with how we can continue to make the different teams inclusive and really have it be a real opportunity for more students who maybe have, show up to high school not necessarily having played previously. And then the other point that I didn't necessarily hear as a reason for cutting, and maybe my assumption is because GPA maybe isn't a reason for why students wouldn't make teams.
No, so if a student doesn't have a 2.0, the first day of their sport, we don't go out and say, sorry, you can't come out because you don't have a 2.0. So we allow everybody to go out for the sport. And then we do an eligibility check, and we will, I know at least for me, and I can't speak for Tim, but I'm sure he does the same thing, is we'll tell the coach, hey, this person is not academically eligible. They could be on the team, but they can't participate in any competitions. Any competitions that they participate in, you forfeit. Which if you're varsity and you're forfeiting your games because of ineligibility, that's not a good reflection on our school or our district.
Yeah, so I would just continue to encourage like ways for us to increase and get creative with how we can really make it a real opportunity for as many students who maybe haven't played previously, because there's just such great value in students, who are student athletes to really have like a sense of belonging and help cultivate that kind of climate at our comprehensive high schools.
Some of that, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I feel like some of that also comes from our student athletes. One of the things that worked in as a female athletic director, I'm a very rare person in our culture. And so to retain female coaches and athletic directors is huge. And that goes back to just ask, right? You may have a coach or somebody that you're like, hey, you look like you would be a really good coach. Same thing with our student athletes. Hey, you look like you would do well in our sport. Come out for soccer, come out for basketball. And sometimes when we ask the students, they just say no. And so going out there and trying to recruit them, sometimes they just say no. And if our student athletes can also help us by going out there and saying, hey, so-and-so come to tryouts, it's on this day, and kind of also being the advocate to get some of our EL students and our newer students, because kid to kid is way more impactful than an adult coming up to somebody and say, hey, you should go out. Sometimes a kid just inviting somebody helps with the belonging and making them feel like they're a part of something.
But I think what I would underscore is the fact that I do believe in athletics as a way of fostering belonging. I think I've heard from students that the 2.0 GPA is what keeps them in school. And so if we can get students that are traditionally underrepresented or struggling because they're trying to learn a second language as well as which is English as well as school, I think it would I guess increase the value that you already add to the school. You add a tremendous amount of value with all of your accolades and all of the competitiveness, but I also think there's value in just playing on a team and knowing that you have to show up every day. It's a commitment, as you said, and I'm not sure how you solve this problem. It's clearly a very difficult issue with limited facilities, but perhaps there could be partnerships with other agencies to try and figure this out, because I think it's really important that our kids have all of our kids have access to all of our programs.
And I will share that part of the professional development that Tim and I both go to, the workshops, the sessions, going to state, national conferences, they do actually have courses about belonging and ways that athletic directors can share with one another tips and trades that they do at their school sites. And so that's one of the things that we've taken away when we go to these conferences as well.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you very much. I know I've got a lot of stuff, but I think you've heard the kind of I think from most of the people on the board, I think what we think is important, and we think you're running a great program at both our schools. We're very lucky to have both of you as our athletic directors at our school. We're very proud of the performance our students are able to do every year. We seem to have, accomplishing, CCS and state finals and just wonderful job. We, like Tim, like you mentioned, you're an AD because of you believe in athletic education. We all believe in it too. And, we would like to think that, yeah, so students would basically get a lot out of it. The best way to learn is by doing and by participating in the sport. PE is one thing, but participating in sport is a completely other level. So I think we all kind of feel that way, that if there's a way, I know we can do it, like Esme mentioned, if we can get creative to get more students and find out which are the sports that are most impacted, to maybe there's something we can do. It'd be great. Maybe take it up to the CIF level. Maybe it's their problem to solve as well, because it's a big issue, I think, for all districts, not just us.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much. Great presentation. All right. So next we have HYA consultants. I think we have a presentation by Diane and Julie. Great, thank you very much.
Diane's looking forward to a new plan next. So campaign is not going well.
That's mine.
I'm sorry. Would it be okay?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Thanks, Sadie. Thanks for stopping. Yeah, appreciate it. Yep. And actually, before you just start, I just would like to request the board if we were to switch 18.3 and 18.4. I know I think there's some people in the audience waiting for 18.4, the parking, school parking update. So if we can just move that ahead of 18.3, can I get a motion to just? I move that we make the change suggested that we gave 18.3 and 18.4 to roll it on the agenda. Thank you.
Could I also suggest that if it goes past 10, that we take a little break?
Sure.
Okay. And I will second.
Okay. So, so the motion is that we will switch 18.4 and 18.3. So ahead of that, and at 10 p.m. we'll take a 5-minute break. Right. All right. So all those in favor? Aye. Passes 5-0. Thank you. Great. All right, Diane, Sue, Julie, thank you very much.
Good evening. Well, I wanted to start and thank you for the opportunity of rejoining your district. We had a great 2 weeks of talking to people to update the profile. We met many new people, 2 new high school principals, 2 new board members, some new district office staff, and then some old friends from our prior visit. We appreciated the comments we got from your student advisory, your parent partnership council, and your foundation board. And with your concurrence, we are thinking of offering one more opportunity Thursday for staff to have the chance to review the document we're hoping that you'll approve tonight and give us ideas on how that, to use one of Phil's words, how those characteristics would be demonstrated uniquely in your district. So we talked to your union representatives today, and they thought that was a good idea if the board would like additional input from them. We have been, 4 of us have been calling wildly Many are surprised by Nellie's announcement. I guess it was a secret that was well kept. I don't know how known it was in your district. But we have called a number of people and saying, well, they have a superintendent. So we're making far more calls than we usually do. One, because of the time of the year, two, the accelerated timeline, and also many regret seeing Nellie depart. So can't you just talk her into staying another year? Four of us are doing calls. We've made, well, I made 6 more today. How many?
I know about.
We have been scouring and informing people of the opportunity. We're starting our screening interviews tomorrow and Wednesday. We are receiving many compliments on Nellie's leadership and what a hard act she's going to be to follow, which is a bit daunting for some people to consider. But we told them that she would guide and mentor them. So I'm hoping we were speaking on your behalf, that you'll help them out with the transition. What we'd like to do tonight is review the input that we got from the board and others. You have a new draft. Do they have that in front of them? And I will be the reporter while Julie fields questions and suggestions. And then we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about the next steps.
Thank you.
All right, so we have the desired leadership characteristic. I think this is version 2 or 3, not sure which one. And if anyone in the audience, there are some sitting back there on that table back there. But I think the board started off with a good strategy when we knew we had a short timeline to take the original characteristics that you wrote previously and then look at them and see what we would add or, kind of beef up the language in it, get more specific. And it turns out it was a very good process, I think, as people read through it. And Diane already mentioned the groups that we talked to and a lot of staff too. They came up with some really good ideas. We were able to embed them in some of the bullets that we had. So if you look down the sheet, you'll see that it was models and reflects. We're looking for these different characteristics under models and reflects. 3 new ones were added over the weekend. And the first one was the understanding that the board and the superintendent make up the district's leadership team. The second one was the inclusion of the district's values, which are excellence, equity, and engagement. And the third one was the commitment to MVLA's adoption of the National Equity Project definition. So just to remind us why we're doing this, when a candidate applies to a school district, they really want to find out, like, what does the district want? What are they looking for? It isn't really one size fits all when you're looking for a superintendent. And so the more specific you can get in this document, the better it's going to be that it's going to be a good match, because they're looking at the district and saying, yes, I meet these. Or these are areas that I really don't have. Well, I mean, one, for instance, would be on the back where it says, what kind of experience do you want? Some districts may not say that it's important to be a teacher. This district has said that. We've heard that over and over, that they want to make sure this person has had teaching experience. So we went through, we revised it once, and then, like I said, we revised it again. I would say that the top things when we met with the board that you identified, you knew were missing, you said the mental health, equity, and diversity pieces were missing from it. We definitely heard that. We were always looking for those cross-cutting themes more than, 2 people saying these ideas, because you can get a lot of one-offs when you're doing this. But we looked at those cross-cutting themes. We saw that overwhelming, and I would say, without a doubt, our number 1 characteristic they were looking for was a clear communicator. And so if you look at bullet number 5, that has some different language in it, but talking about how important it is, especially in this district, to really reach out to people, communicate what's happening in the district. And Nellie, we're not trying to flatter you, but we heard that over and over, what a good job you've done with that. To develop the partnership, the family partnership, to have the students involved. Student voice, we kept hearing about student voice. We don't always hear that in districts. And Parent Square, how you're using Parent Square in the district. And just hearing your athletic director saying they're putting all of that in there too, very wise. So this is the characteristics that we've come up with. Once it is discussed and we've made any changes or adjustments that you want to make, we will make those adjustments tonight and get them out to the candidates. They have the last version, and you know, it helps them, but this will be more specific and guide them even more. And then the board, of course, will use it when they're writing their questions, when they're debriefing after they meet candidates, after you go home after a long day of interviews, you can look back to this list and say, you know, these are the candidates that are really filling these slots for us. So that's really what I would like to say. And then if you have any questions for us or that we can answer.
Thank you very much, Julie, Diane. Any questions from the board?
I had more of a comment. I think you did it overall. This is really much better than the original drafts. And I really appreciated the time that you spent talking to me. Obviously you talked to us all individually because of the Brown Act. The one word I don't see included is inclusion. And so my suggestion would be, since you're talking about, there's a thing that says sensitivity and understanding of a diverse student population consistently seeking, and I would add inclusion, value-added opportunities, and continuous improvement for all. So I think that would just be a good word to add, since you're already talking about diversity. But I think when you talk about diversity, I think it's important to include inclusion.
Okay. So I comment on that. I think there is a place here where it talks about giving everyone a sense of belonging. To me, that captures inclusion.
I think a sense of belonging is related to it, but I think inclusion has a specific, like each word has a different nuance to it, and I think inclusion has a different nuance than belongs. So belonging, I think, is more related to an individual sense of how they feel connected to the school. And I feel inclusion is an institutional value that a district promotes and thinks about. For example, when we were thinking about sports, we talked about inclusion in sports. But sports itself engenders belonging, because when you're in a sport, you're in a team.
I have to say I agree with Theta on that inclusion is a little bit different than belonging. And furthermore, inclusion and belonging are a little bit different than equity. And so I just want to make sure we have all three concepts in there somehow.
Okay, well, I'd like to go on.
Yeah, so maybe, so basically using that bullet that you mentioned, so sensitivity to and understanding of a diverse student population, consistently seeking value-added opportunities.
Well, I put inclusion first, but I don't really care which order it comes in.
So consistently seeking inclusion.
Value-added opportunities.
Comma, value added, yeah. That would work.
Yeah, I think I'm fine with that as well.
So are we going with what you said?
Yeah, inclusion.
Yeah,
I think that works, yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. Any other questions on this?
No, I just want to say, I think it turned out really, really well. And I think it was already excellent, but I also think that our district has changed and grown or whatever over the last 5 years before we hired Dr. Meyer. And some of these key concepts were brought upon by additional concepts were brought on by the pandemic and mental health needs there, but we're trying to, we've solved some of our problems or changed some of our activities over the last several years, but now we need to hone it in, iterative improvement, iterative, whatever. So I'm glad to see these additional things added. That's all I have to say. So I'm really happy with, if we get somebody that satisfies all these things, which I'm sure we will, we'll be real happy.
Great, thank you.
If we could add, we want to thank Amy.
Yep.
This was quite a flurry of fitting in all of the appointments, and your staff were very gracious. We did some while they were driving home in traffic, and some 7 in the morning. And
Some at an airport.
Yeah, some at an airport, yes. We really want to thank Amy for helping us figure out how to access and best time, and also getting things up on the web and getting the letters out to the 3 groups so quickly. Because I think we got excellent feedback. We cross-checked that their items were in here also.
Well, thank you for that reminder. Yes, I mean, I think Amy did a fantastic job. She's just getting new to the job too. But
Yeah.
she's picking it up very, very quickly, and fantastic job. So thank you, Amy, and the staff. Yeah, so thank you, Diane, for saying that. For recognizing them. Yeah, not enough recognition. Absolutely, I agree. Wonderful. Thank you.
An admin is one of the best things you can have, actually. Very undervalued, but invaluable, I would say.
Great.
May I go ahead and make a motion to approve it with that one extra word?
Is it?
Can I ask a point of order? Usually it's not a vote.
Yeah, it's not
Usually
a-
it's just.
Okay, oh, it's not a vote, it's just,
Yeah.
but it says here,
Information. I know.
info
So
action.
yeah, so I think it's just information though. It's just optional action. There's
Okay,
no
all
action.
right.
No actual action.
Well, I think we're in concurrence.
Good. And then the last item, we have started sending around a list of questions. We invite you to come up with creative questions also that you think are appropriate. And so later in this process, we will actually create and choose the questions for the first interviews if we move ahead with the calendar we've developed. But we like to start that early so you can be thinking of that.
Okay, thank you. Okay. When do you need the questions?
We asked for them, I think, on the 21st for a first round.
First round, okay.
But also at the meeting, on the 23rd, we're happy to, it would just
Okay.
shorten the conversation on the 23rd if we had a working draft, but we can certainly modify it that night also.
Okay. I think we can do that. Good. Wonderful. Thank you very much.
so
Thank you,
much.
Julie. Thank you, Diane. Appreciate it.
And my surgeon is really hoping we meet the May deadline. I said, we may have to extend. He goes, no, just tell them. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so.
Oh.
At
At
10.
10. Can you hang out?
You want to take it now?
I'll be right back while they're setting up.
Okay, why don't we just take the break now? Just
Sure,
take
it's
it now.
fine.
We'll
Yeah.
just take a quick break. Okay.
Oh, shit. Hmm.
Okay, so thank you. Sure, well, thank you. This tended to be just a brief overview to acclimate everyone, to the parking situation at Los Altos High School. I'll also include a little bit about entry points to campus for both bicyclists and pedestrians, just to kind of bring them up to speed. It's in reference to, what was mentioned earlier, and some of the board reports about conversations with the city of Los Altos, and kind of bringing it back to the campus itself, what's available, what's the current status quo, as well as a few things to consider for the future going forward. So just to make sure we get our bearings, and I will try and stay on the way. The pointer does not work on the monitor, so I'll use my finger. This is Los Altos campus, north of the top, south of the bottom. The main parking lot highlighted in green, which is the main parking lot. This will make sense in the next slide where we have numbers and how many parking spots we have in each lot. And then this Google map was a little bit dated. This was before we completed the student services building. But the student services lot, sometimes called the admin lot or visitor lot, it's a smaller lot there on the southeast side of the campus, right there in front of the Ranger Student Services building. So why we're setting that reference point is when we look at the numbers for how many spots we have, you can see it up here on the screen. Now I should have made it bigger, but bigger on my monitor when I was creating this. Total in that main parking lot, 279 spaces, weighted heavily towards staff parking. The staff slots include the EV, electric vehicle charging station. So that 191 number is inclusive of the 31 electric vehicle charging stations, which are used exclusively by staff during the school day. You see there's a count for students, visitor spots, accessible spots that are required by code, and then district vans are parked out there in the main lot. Student services lot is a much smaller parking lot, so 37 spots total. Obviously, has fewer spots that includes staff and visitor spots. A comment, and I thank the Los Altos administration for collecting this data and counting it for us. The visitor spots in the main parking lot are a holdover from the 2 years when student services building was under construction. So the student services lot was completely torn up, being used for construction. So they created visitor spots in the main parking lot. When the student services lot reopened, beginning the school year, they of course have visitor spots in that lot and then kept the ones in the main parking lot. And those will be, you'll see a later slide when you say recalibrating spots. Those visitor spots in the main parking lot will go away and it'll be exclusive to student services lot. So that was a question I had at the school site, and that was the explanation. Really, there's a holdover from construction student services why those visitor spots were in the main parking lot to begin with. So it kind of sets the context for how many spots are available. A lot of staff spots with the commitment to provide a parking spot for every staff member on campus. That includes teachers, classified staff. So you see it as a large number. But again, I'm jumping ahead to a later slide where our school's going to look at recalibrating what that true number needs to be and making sure there's spots for staff, but the right number, not over amount or parking spaces. But you can see out of 279, 62 for students doesn't leave a lot for student parking in that lot.
And this, just to, right, so this number here doesn't include the parking spots on East Driveway that we lost due to construction.
Correct.
But will come back.
Correct.
Yeah. And then how many spots do you have that?
Which is the next slide,
Okay.
which I'll get to, but yeah.
Okay.
So it does, correct, it does not include some prior staff spots we had that we lost due to construction that will come back. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So let me keep going forward if I may. So additional future parking options. And again, it's harder to see this aspect ratio on the screen, but I get on the point. What Board President was mentioning, the spots we lost to the construction along, we call it the driveway. So in yellow, long and narrow, these are parallel parking spots along the east driveway that were dedicated for staff, as well as way in the northeast corner. You come in from Jordan, and those are angled spots right by the softball field for staff. Those we cannot, well, they've been taken over for construction, with construction access as well as staging. So those spots have been reduced, and so that's why they label more staff spots in the main parking lot. I don't have a count of that number. We can probably get that number for you when we reach at that point. I would ballpark it at around 20 to 25. And I think when I was there, I mean, parallel, there's easily 10. I'd say there's 12 out here by the softball field, and just as many on the parking parallel. So in yellow, we will gain back once construction is done. It's not a presentation on construction, but it impacts parking. So we're wrapping up construction modernization on the 400 and 500 wings this year. We'll roll the 200 and 300 wings next school year. So this will be still unable to use for parking through the 24-25 school year. But the plan is after 24-25, this driveway will be opened up and parking regained for the 25-26 school year. The areas that I've had in red, again, this is just trying to think outside the box. If we had to put more parking, where would it be? And really those cover the location of the temporary classrooms. Again, those are classrooms we put on campus to help with moving classrooms around, and teachers and programs that are there during the duration of construction. So construction is over for the most part, at least with the classroom after the 24th school year, and we're able to remove those classrooms. It opens up space, it opens up land to determine how best to use that. Right, it's a former economics teacher telling us what's the next best use of that land. Obviously, in the front here, that's a narrow space, so it creates a challenge for how cars might get in and out. Here, the what we call north portal is out by baseball. It's a little easier to get in and out, but again, it's far from where people might be going to their place, their workstation, or main avenue, of that nature. There are other suggestions, but it involves taking away existing athletic surface space, whether it be hard surface or grass or things like that. It didn't seem really worthwhile even present the non-starters, many of like tennis courts or taking out grass or things like that.
And so right now, I mean, so on Jordan, the parallel parking, by the tennis courts, maybe even by the baseball field. So some teachers may be parking there right now, either because they lost the parking along East Driveway, and this may be closer to their classrooms and such. But I guess, do we know if the count of those parallel spots, I think, should be equivalent or maybe even a little less than what they would gain from the East Driveway. So if they're then able to park on the East Driveway, maybe it may be a year from now after construction, but then they may not need to parallel park on that, right?
Yeah, and we didn't take the street parking count in our consideration, because that's, obviously not school parking, which the school has control over and can label staff or students. But yeah, I have heard there's teachers parking there. The reason why, anecdotally, closer to my classrooms here. The other aspect is, if you've been in a school parking lot, the DO shares a parking lot with Mountain View High School. When school's over and everyone's leaving, it's a giant funnel getting out. And so both students and staff, again, this is just one of several reasons. Parking adjacent is, that you sometimes can get out quicker at the end of the day. Than being stuck in the parking lot along with a long line of cars. I know one thing Los Altos did to help with that is that asking parents not to pick up or drop off in the parking lot has made traffic here just for parking, same with egress or exiting. It's not, commingled people who are coming in to pick up students and then leave, creating more outflow. It's not cause of leaving. And to confirm that horseshoe that's there, I don't know, I may have,
Yeah,
I may have
it's
said,
kind of covered by trees right here, but it's on Almond.
it's
Yeah,
all,
it passed through.
and that's open now,
Left to Terry, it's over, yes.
it's open now.
I had to confirm because it's gone from open to closed to open.
So,
Or drop off.
and I don't know, Tracy may not know, but, do you know if, so since we closed it, parents were probably going to Jarden to drop off, because that was the only place to drop off, right, when that was closed? Because they couldn't go in the parking lot, they couldn't, and they couldn't stop on Element, right? So they can't like stop on Element and
Yeah,
drop off.
because there's a cycle track along the north side of Almond and the school side.
Right.
There's no stopping. I need to get my timeline correct in terms of when the pass-through was closed, were parents allowed to go in the parking lot to drop off? So I mean.
So I'm just wondering whether, you know, now that it's open, if hopefully will it offload some of the drop off that's going, the traffic going on Jarden? If to offload, I don't know if that's,
We opened it right before winter break as a test to see how it would relieve traffic. And we were mostly concerned about the safety on Almond and in the main parking lot because parents were picking up and dropping off in the parking lot. It was very dangerous for students with all that traffic, and parents were also stopping on Almond in the bike lane. So we opened the turnaround permanently after winter break, and it did relieve traffic in the main parking lot, on Jarden, and on Almond. I mean, it didn't fix everything, but it made a big difference.
Could you go back? So I want to understand the parking that's going to be given back. It looks like a narrow strip, but obviously that's not, like, how many parking spaces is that roughly? 18? And then how many roughly, I mean, obviously you can park the whole way on Jordan, but like right in front of the school, how many spaces is that approximately?
I don't have that count. Get that count, or I think
it's about 20, it's about 20 cars, so, yeah.
So it'd be about and actually this is closer. So if you're parking for convenience, you'd park there because it's right next to, I'm after construction is over, you would park there as opposed to, if that's why you're parking on Jordan for convenience, you would park there because it's closer.
I will acknowledge these temporary classrooms will go away. And so there's nothing pulling people out of that, section of campus once those go away.
So to potentially, that could become a parking lot.
It could be a place to add more parking.
If we needed to, potential. And, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, again, the habits, what drives some staff who choose to park where they do is sometimes more than, one or two things, or, it could be staff, it could be students. If this opens up, will they park here versus, in public street parking?
I had one question, and that is, when you put that narrow strip back in to the right of your diagram, would you then make that staff and have the students go over in the other lot? Rather than spread the students over there and over here and like that?
Yeah, I believe what would happen is it would just revert back to the yellow part would be staff as it was pre-2019, as well as back here softball. And that just converts from staff back to student parking spots in the main parking lot.
Sorry, I had another question about, I know the main parking lot, I believe it has it has one exit and one entrance. Is there a way to like add, because I know the Mountain View parking lot has 2 entrances and 2 exits. So is there a way, I don't know, I can't quite see the topography of that to see if that would be possible with, especially with the solar panels.
So it does have entry and exit at both locations. There's 2 driveways, and at each driveway you can enter and exit.
Right, but I think the issue with that though, what I've seen is that people don't always keep to their lane, especially if they're a student driver. So there's conflict, like if a car is entering and exiting. And so that, I mean, not that there's accidents or anything, but it just slows things down. So I wonder if there's a way to streamline that. If there's a creative way we could come up with to think about exiting and entering.
Look at directional signage or arrows, you make one entrance only, one exit only. I think those are things to look at, like you're comparing Mountain View High School. One difference in Mountain View, their at least front lot, the staff lot, it's on a corner of the property.
Right.
So there's two sides to a rectangle, to exit as opposed to just one. In the afternoon, the Mountain View student lot or back parking lot, BPL, as they refer to it as, has just two driveways in and out, and it's a mess. Is a nice way to put it for about 10 to 15.
Yeah, that's why I was asking if there's any resolution to that, or we're just kind of bound by what we have already.
I think there's always options to look at. I think that's more traffic flow. Many years ago, decades before the solar canopies, I think there was directional parking, and some of the layout got changed to the columns for the solar canopy, and that changes and adjusts the layouts. That's why, the drive aisle doesn't necessarily line up with a row of parking in the Mountain View student lot anymore versus, there was a time where it did. You go to some schools and you go into one entrance, and if you miss an aisle, oh my goodness, you got to go all the way through and out and around and come back in. So there's, pros and cons with all that in terms of the striping and wayfinding signs.
Yeah, Peter, I think your question is a good one, and Stephen Son has said that if we have any questions whatsoever, he'd be happy to help us answer them. He's the fellow who's the traffic engineer for LaSalle.
Okay.
So we can run that question by him and see what he thinks.
Okay.
And I think the main purpose of this slide is just to show that, once construction opened up the east driveway again, we gained back staff spots, which brings up more spots than the main lot for student parking to help encourage those students who are driving to make use of that student lot for their vehicles to relieve some pressure from the surrounding neighborhoods. It's not going to relieve all of it, but the more we can utilize our on-campus areas, the better. And then the final part is just addressing, it's parking related, but it's bicycle and pedestrian entry points. And there's a lot of arrows on this slide, but I'm just trying to point out, and this was a lot due to the feedback we got from Los Altos admin staff who are there, daily basis, understanding some of that traffic flow. And so it's really identifying what are the potential places where paths cross between bicyclists, pedestrians, and cars, and maybe where they don't. And so if we start at the bottom at Allman, I know people in the audience, it's hard for you to see where I'm pointing, but at least there's somewhat visual over the other responders. There's a crosswalk here at Gordon Way and Allman, and it's hard to see. I try to make a little yellow crosswalk, but it's right here, 1.2. So people come up Gordon, or they come from the east, traveling west on Allman, and we try and divert bikes and pedestrians on the campus in the east driveway. Conversely, coming from the west, traveling east direction from Allman to divert in that main parking lot. What that points out is there at the pass through, most of the bikes and pedestrians have already entered campus, so there's less potential for crossover of cars in that pass through where bikes might be traveling, because the bikes have already entered into campus to the east side or over here on the west side where the parking lot is, because that was one of the big concerns about bike safety. Similarly at Jordan,
Just go, on Almond, so how many bikes are eastbound? Do we know? I mean, is that a large number of bikes? Because they have to make a left, so are they going, so they would be going?
actually are riding on what we would
they're
normally call the wrong side, but they've created a cycle track there, so it's a two-way bike path
So they
on
are
the
riding.
school side of Almond.
Okay.
And then
To learn that term.
they're going into the parking lot.
Yeah, because a lot of the bike racks are right here along the feeder there, or in the front of the cafeteria right here.
So again, how do they manage that in the morning when there's cars coming in as well?
Very careful. Well, again, the cars coming in now are people who are parking, right? It's not people dropping off, because the pass-through is intended to be used for people dropping off This is people coming off and staff who arrived before, a lot of student traffic. So that's one aid that's helped with that.
Okay.
Okay, so moving to the north side of campus for the Jordan, if bicyclists or pedestrians are coming from the east, they're traveling west, right? They can turn, and often the current behavior is often most do cross at the crosswalk there at Casino Way from the east driveway. There's a lot of bike racks back here near the engineering building. There's a bunch back here. This is the 900 building and the fields back there. So getting off the street, make use of that crosswalk. Coming onto campus here, there's bike racks even along 600 wing classroom building. So that really, once the westbound bike traffic, pedestrians pretty much stops at Casita and the East Drive and comes on campus. And a lot of the eastbound bike traffic, well, there's not much eastbound bike traffic. I know one of the neighbors shared morning number 7 one morning. That was not disputed when I talked to one of the assistant principals, because a lot of bikes get kind of east over to Casita somewhere else in the neighborhood and come down that way because they come right across the crosswalk in a safer manner that way. If they are coming from the east, pedestrians or bikes, they can turn and come on this concrete pathway between the tennis courts and baseball. Ideally walk their bikes, come out to the bike racks and they're right there by the 600 lane. Again, in an effort showing that there's not a lot of bike traffic going on tennis courts, if that's a drop-off point or if that's being considered a loading zone for cars to pull over, drop off, and then go back out and avoid traffic.
Mike, is there a reason we couldn't have the entrance from the Jordan on the west side closer to San Antonio Road, the other side of the baseball field, right there?
I don't think so. I could double check to see if that is open in the morning or not. It's trying to think through. If they come this way, they have their bike. I'd like them not to ride the bike on the track, but there is an asphalt path there that they can move around. So that's a possibility.
I mean, it wouldn't make a huge difference, but it would make more room without cars and bikes.
Be an earlier turn on campus. Yeah. So that just kind of shows you the different entry points on the campus and where really there's identifiable gaps because people have already entered campus. Obviously, these arrows reverse at the end of the day. And so finally, some considerations for the coming school year, as we've already mentioned, recalibrating the number of staff, student, and visitor spots. I mentioned some of it's holdover from painting and striping and spot labeling from when student services were under construction, so just that. Recalibrate the number of staff spots that are truly needed and used, making sure that numbers is dialed in as it can be in terms of the number of permits needed for staff when they come. It's been a long practice at most schools to charge for student parking permits, and Tracy was talking about with her team about not charging for those next year to encourage more students to access the lot, use the lot. They do oversell the number of parking permits. I think that the 62 spots, I think the numbers around 90 or so permits they sold. But again, it costs as a deterrent. Let's take that deterrent away. More students to access that parking permit, make use of the lot and spaces that are in that lot. And then, of course, potential changes by the city of Los Altos, the Jordan Avenue striping, as was mentioned in the board report of some potentials of looking at moving back or adjusting striping as well. That's something to take into consideration.
Yeah, I shared the diagram with Miguel. I don't know, we can show it. And,
And then lastly, we talked about continued use of these driveways for construction access staging. We'll have to endure that for one more year, but after that, we gain that back. So that's the last slide I have prepared. So if we need to project something or discuss something.
Can you project this slide here?
You can have that on the slide. Here.
Yeah, maybe just
Color comments, sure.
Yeah. I made them one, but I want the board to see what the city is proposing and just kind of, whether we can answer any questions, but just
just so they're aware of
For
that.
Catherine, who doesn't have a paper copy.
I can send it to them.
Okay, yeah, that's right. She can,
Let me do that.
right.
I'll just forward this.
So, yeah, the fourth slide. Yep, that's one right there. Are you familiar with the proposal, Mike?
I've seen it.
You've seen it.
This was shared with me, I think so.
Do you want to walk through it, or do you want, I mean?
Yeah, I think I am in this meeting, so, not sure which way to stand, but, so, cross-section looking at Jordan, this is current, right, and this is what's proposed, if I'm not mistaken, right? You want to walk through current or just go to proposed?
So, yeah, I mean, yeah, walk through the current, yeah, go ahead.
Current, if you're, this is the school to our right, and we're gonna go across the street, so there's a sidewalk, concrete sidewalk with a cycle track, which cycle track means two-way bike traffic. Then there's a little painted buffer, it's brownish, it's brown, sort of meant to be brownish red. Then you have a loading zone and or parallel parking, so you have the strip that looks like it's out in the middle of the road, where there's a loading zone and or marked parking spaces. And then you have the two travel lanes all the way on the north side of the road or the far side away from the school. And so you have a center stripe, cars going eastbound, and then cars and bikes in a shared lane coming westbound, right up against the curb. There's no sidewalk on the north side of Jordan, against the curb. So it pushes travel lanes all the way to the far side, leaves that cycle track, and then has this, row of cars, the loading zone, and painted spots out there in the middle of the street.
Right.
And so the proposal is against the sidewalk, which would be right next to the curb, and sidewalk have a parking and loading zone, parallel parking. A one-way bike lane right next to that, a buffer, and then the travel lane eastbound and westbound, and then another bike lane on the far side of the streets. Have kind of more mirror images up to the school side.
And so what Phil and I learned, because we had a call with Stephen Son on Friday, and what we learned is actually this proposal, the second proposal, is actually what it used to be before the construction, or maybe whenever the first one was changed. I'm not sure exactly when that was changed to that first one, but it used to be this second proposal. And so that buffer lane was there. So that's what we learned. Does that sound right?
Yeah, there was a time, and I'm gonna get my order wrong. I think there was also angled parking on Jordan. I'm not sure if the parallel was before or after that, before it went to the existing one. I'm sure that some of the residents verify that order.
Okay.
Which is fine, but, and, part of the district has more mountain view, so I can speak to the history more.
Sure.
But yes, at one point, that parallel right next to the curb was what the, markings were before it went to the current one. The cycle track and buffer and the parking.
So Mike, how much of this, is this all along Jordan or just around Los Altos High? How far does this?
It's just the section works.
Okay, so my question.
I think it goes down
Okay.
to Panchita. Because bikes can go on Panchita and come through, depending on if they're going westbound on Jordan.
Okay.
There's a crosswalk over there that they can cross onto to go back eastbound.
There's, I think, one of the prior slides might have had markings along the whole. Scroll up, but that gives, I think one of the pages shows the striping markings of the.
Yeah, I think.
It might have been.
The one after that slide we were looking at. Keep on going down.
All right.
Yeah, I think,
So-
keep on going, one more. There you go. I think there we go.
Yeah, it's so small, I can't read it.
Yeah, it's kind of small.
But it kind of at least addressed the question, in terms of how far.
Okay. So I guess the idea of the new design, cause I can see the cars for a buffer. Which is a traditional thing, but then the students have to get to the high school. So, right, so if you're I guess if you're being a safe bicyclist, which is assuming you're gonna follow the law, you're gonna use a crosswalk, right? And you're gonna use a crosswalk to get to the other side of Jordan, right? So that's assuming that students use crosswalks and they practice safe biking behavior. In my experience, students do not use crosswalks, even pedestrians. So this design where they have them on the same side as a high school, it seems to me to follow more how students actually bike, which is they want to be on the same side as the high school, and they're not right now. They just, I mean, they might go on the sidewalk, but they're probably not going to. They're going to bike until they get to the to an entrance to Los Altos High, and then bike in.
Yeah, so one thing we did learn, I mean, this was actually from the residents that, and I think you said the city confirmed it, right? The number of bikes that are going on Jordan is very low. It's not a very high number of bikes that are traveling on Jordan to go to the school.
Okay.
It's not a big number. So it's, I mean, yeah, at first I thought when I first heard this, I was concerned about that too, with the bike traffic, with the cars and trying to parallel park and all of that. But the numbers are small. That doesn't mean it's not still it can be a concern, but in terms of total number of bikes is low. Very small.
Well, so I think I always look to the future, and right now I will just say I live in Mountain View and the safe routes to schools are not there. So I think if we actually had safe routes to schools where you could actually, I mean, crossing El Camino Real, and a lot of our students have to cross El Camino Real is really difficult right now. So I think if the city actually solved that problem, I think we would have a lot more bicyclists. Because we do have students biking in Mountain View, Westman to Graham. But I think El Camino Real is quite a barrier, and they basically, I mean, in a high school, in a middle school, you can, the bell lets out and you leave, right? So you can basically have a mass of bicycles go all at once, but in a high school with different periods, you can't be assured that you're going to bike at this exact same time as a bunch of other students, because people have different bell schedules.
What is that doing for Los Altos? Is that problems the same you're thinking as over by Mountain View, Graham to Mountain View?
Well, it's the same problem with both high schools, right? They're both, El Camino Real is a big barrier for both high schools. I mean, it's just the location of both high schools.
Well, we need to discuss that with Mountain View then, not with Los Altos Planning, which is who's discussing this.
I'm not discussing the issue with Los Altos. What I'm saying is that I think I'm looking at the long-term picture, and I think Mountain View and actually Caltrans has plans to add bicycle lanes to El Camino Real. So I'm looking at the long-term, what's not the biking pattern today, but what it's going to be. Right, we're building this not for today, but for what's going to be in the future, right? This is going to be around for many years. So that's what I'm thinking about.
Okay, so, anyways, so the proposal is what, the city is proposing at the bottom, just so everybody knows. And just to give you a perspective of the timeline, the city, we're gonna have we'll schedule another 2x2. Where Phil and I will meet a couple of their board members. I don't know if it'll be the same two or different, but we'll meet them and we'll discuss the proposal even more. But they are, this is a discussion that's been going on with some people on the high school, Los Altos High School District, and the city of Los Altos for a few months. And so they've gone along the proposal pretty far, and they're at a point where they would actually are going to approve it, and would like to start construction in the summer. They would like to start in June. Is what they would like to be able to do. So that's just to give you a timeline. That's just to give you a timeline. So just a heads up on that. So okay.
Okay,
And
yeah.
everything's going on. So the way I'd like to actually go next for this meeting, unless there's any specific questions for Mike, I'd like to invite. I know these are mostly residents. I assume that have filled it out. I'd like to invite them. Many of them, they've sent some wonderful emails to the board. I think we've all received. So I want to just thank them before they start speaking. But we'll call them one by one. They'll have some questions, and maybe we can, if we have questions after they speak, we may have more questions for Mike or proposals for that. So that's the way I'd like to. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. So first up, David Williams. Okay.
Thank you very much for giving me time to speak. And I was the person who collected data. So I live on the corner of Jardine and Casita, by the school entrance, by the side of the tennis courts. I've lived there since 2011. My wife, and I have an 8-year-old son, and he's looking forward to coming to Los Altos High School one day. So I've been to the planning meetings with the city. The question that was said at the beginning was, the 2019 changes were to address some problem. We asked the question and we have not had that reason articulated, so we cannot comment on the validity of what was intended. You also spoke about traffic like it was a problem. I just see students crossing the road. Yes, it's busy for 15 minutes, but it doesn't really seem terrible. It's been like that for as long as I've lived at the house. So teachers do park on Jardine adjacent to the tennis courts. Their views were not captured in the planning meetings that I attended. Those planning meetings tended to focus on bicycles, hence I took the data, which showed that only 7 people do use that cycle track. Not only that, the comment was once made that, I think in the last meeting, that other school people were going along Jardine in front of the tennis courts to get to other schools. So I've given another update to you, and basically there's only 2 kids that do go along Jardine there. My son and somebody who goes to school with him, and they go to Almond Elementary, and the traffic doesn't route past Jardine and tennis courts. You mentioned talking to the traffic engineer at Los Altos. He did not attend any of those meetings as I'm aware of, and I have never spoken to him, which I would have liked to have done.
He just joined the city a month ago.
Okay. Thanks. Then, I'll try to be quick. So you're correct, option 4 is very close to the pre-summer 2023 markings. If parking is something you wish to double, then the pre-April 2011 markings are the diagonal ones. I feel the designated loading zone is a distraction which appears on those plans because in practice all the streets are a loading zone, and that's dictated by the high traffic volumes during those 15 minutes. So I think that all you're doing is reducing parking spots for no good reason. And also on the plans that's currently stated, it says that the school is to manage the zone. I don't think that's necessary. I think the school should decide that, not the city. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, next, David Sauerhuft.
Fiscal drive and so September 27th, the petition was presented expressing our safety concern with the new street markings on Jordan. There's now a proposal from the city that while a modest improvement from what exists on Jordan today remains dangerously flawed. With respect to that proposal, it requires cars to cross the bike lane for drop-off, pickup, and parking. This is obviously not safe. Also, with no clearance between parked cars and bicycles, car doors will open into the bike lane. The north side bike lane with no shoulder sets up for an accident as Jordan drivers with little visibility go out from their driveways. Keep in mind, it's not just bicycles, but fast-moving e-bikes in that bike lane as well. On the south side of Jordan, a 2-foot buffer between cars and bikes is planned, yet there's no buffer on the north side. Clearance for north side walkers is lacking, and there are a lot of walkers, both in the neighborhood and students. 5, the no left turn from Casita is not thought through. Casita bicyclists could walk their bikes across Casita and then Jordan. Nice thought, but it's not going to happen. The city consultant suggested bicycles make a U-turn on Jordan, then enter the school. Is that safe? Is it legal? Alternatively, bicyclists will cross Casita earlier and ride on the wrong side of the road. Realistically, cars will turn right onto Jordan, then stop traffic as they let students out to jaywalk across Jordan. There will be other new problematic traffic flows as well. So what should be done? Jordan is simply not wide enough to safely support dedicated bike lanes, two-way vehicular traffic, parking, drop-off, pickup walkers, Jordan driveway, exiting from Jordan driveways. Key to informing any recommendation is to understand that there's very little bicycle traffic that traverses up and down Jordan. The bicycle traffic comes from the side streets, perpendicular to Jordan, and flows into the school. So 1, understanding the bicycle traffic comes from the streets perpendicular to Jordan, encourage students to enter the high school on paths at Casita, Los Niños, and Panchita. As students are encouraged to use these pathways, entering and exiting the school, we can expect an either further reduction in the already very little bicycle traffic up and down Jordan. 2, provide vehicle parking, drop-off, and pickup on the south side curb next to the school. 3, allow for two-way shared vehicle bicycle traffic lanes. For the little bicycle traffic that is there, signage and street markings can be added to advise caution and that these are shared lanes. 4, provide a wide shoulder on the north side. This ensures visibility as drivers pull out of their driveways and as vehicles turn onto Jordan from the cross streets. This wide shoulder will also be used by students and community walkers who will then be better protected from cars. 5, place no stopping signs at the cross street intersections with Jordan. Drivers currently wait at the corner for pickup, which blocks driver visibility. 6, fix the crosswalk markings to align with this plan. 7, consider adding a crossing guard at Casita and Jordan during school start and end times. 8, police enforcement. We in the neighborhood are ready to work together with the school, the city administration, and the police to ensure safety for our community. Thank you. Apologize to people.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, next, Mike Emmerich.
My name is Mike Emmerich, and I've lived in Los Altos on Los Niños Way for over 22 years. And all my children graduated from high school at Los Altos High. Over the last 10 years, the high school enrollment has increased by 35%. We have approximately 700 students who are driving age. Although I appreciate a previous comment at the 2x2 meeting regarding more parking spaces do not solve the problem. However, the lack of parking has resulted in more problems up for the neighbors north of Chardon. Today, the campus has approximately 62 units, spaces that I can confirm, and approximately 130 to 150 of those students park on the narrow streets north of Chardon. I'd like to recommend a couple of the items. The new administration building that we talked about earlier, that is a positive development. There's also 41 spots that I counted as EV parking for staff only. I think you should consider some of those for students. In the future, I would like to see the board consider the following, which is the 9 portables. I can add to that 65 feet wide and 225 feet deep. This could possibly accommodate 50 parking spaces at 90-degree angle with going in and out in the middle. It will accommodate for that. Another consideration, and I still think that the construction area where the tennis courts are, east of Chardon, parallel to Alicia Way, this area has a width of 118 feet by 187 feet. Even if you took half of that, they could accommodate 75 staff members to 35, depending on the size. In general, the staff arrives before the students and leaves after the students. In my opinion, this would be a much safer option. Once the construction is completed, this should also be considered to allowing staff, once again, park adjacent to the softball field, which you also mentioned. Both of these recommendations would allow the staff to park in designated areas on campus and allow the students to park on Chardon. I can also add that Chardon has 43 spots, 18 of which today are used for loading. I'd like to thank the board for letting us voice our concerns today, and that we need to work together with this problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Oops, I'm sorry. Okay. Lynn Emmerich.
Hi, my name is Lynn Emmerich, and I've lived on Los Niños Way near Los Altos High School since I was 4 years old, on and off, not the whole time. The traffic and parking problems on the neighborhood streets north of Chardon have increased tremendously over the last 10 years and has become dangerous for drivers, walkers, and bikers due to students lining our streets for almost 3/4 of the way down. Students have to weave in and out of parked cars. Cars have to pull over to the side in front of driveways because there's not enough room for the cars to be parked bumper to bumper, and then two-way traffic, and then walkers and bikers. It's very unsafe. I recommend that the following changes at the very minimum need to be made. Require right turn only on Almond when exiting the carve out. The current stencil is faded and unclear. Add drop off in the main parking lot. It used to be there. It's plenty wide. Every school I've ever worked at or taken my children to have been able to accommodate both. There is just as much or more crowding on Chardon and surrounding streets, so that this would add more availability for dropping off and picking up, and it would just spread out the traffic, so it wouldn't be so congested. It's so congested on the backside because we are so narrow behind the high school. Improve access to parking permits for students during the entire school year, not just in the fall. No cost, which I heard is going to be changed, so that's good news. Administration needs to monitor the use of student parking in the main parking lot. It is severely underutilized. There are empty spaces there all the time, every single day. If it's underutilized by students, add more student parking permits. And we also notice a lot of staff slots not being used, so those should be reassigned to students if staff is not going to use them, or if there's more staff parking then there is staff to use them. And then hopefully staff should not be parking on Chardon. That should be for students. Do not direct students to park specifically on the surrounding streets the way the website says, and or any place else. They've been told to park on Los Niños, on Panchita. We are not the personal parking lot of the school. Keep Los Altos website up to date regarding parking and drop off. It still says the Almond carve out is closed. Improve communication with nearby residents as to construction and changes on campus. And they did just recently take the benches out and the carve out off of Almond to allow for more drop off. So one of my questions is, are parents now going to be able to drop off on the right and on the left? And are those trash cans that are there but still spread out, are they going to be moved so we could have 2 lanes of traffic dropping off? That would be my question and suggestion. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Okay, next, Petra Bulow.
Hello, I'm Petra Bulow. I'm on Los Niños Way as well. I'm 4 houses from the school. I grew up in Los Altos as well. Went to Los Altos High School from Los Altos Hills and commuted to school on my bike, in my carpool, in a bus. And sometimes I walk, which took a good hour. I've lived on Los Niños for 35 years, and it's been a lovely, harmonious relationship with the school and the residents until very recently. And it's been very difficult, and it's total chaos now. The restriping that occurred on Jardin is 4 different colors. It doesn't make any sense. You have a walkway, pedestrian walkway, and then a bike lane, and then a sidewalk on the side of the cars where kids don't get out of the car. They get out on the driver's side, but not on the passenger side because they're young drivers and they can't drive with other people in the car. They also are new drivers and they don't understand how to drive sometimes. So it's a very dangerous road the way it's painted now on Jardin. I was in an Uber the other day. He turned out off of Los Niños onto Jardin into oncoming traffic because it looks like it's a bike lane and not a throughway for the cars. We also had a big accident on Los Niños and Alvarado 2 weeks ago. It was students hit each other, so because they drive too fast. The school website directed the students or the parents to drop off by going down Panchita and Los Niños, turning on Jardin, and then coming back up Distal. And they, meanwhile, also directed the students to park on these same streets. So there's a lot of traffic, a lot of cars. It's complete chaos in the mornings and in the afternoons. So the streets were not meant for this kind of activity. They're not wide enough. There's a lot of traffic going on. On Los Niños, there are no bikes going down Los Niños trying to get into school. You would not go down that street. You'd be killed trying to drive down the street. But the bikes do know to use Casita, or maybe occasionally one might come up Valencia. So encouraging the bikes to go into the campus on the ends of the school, and then getting rid of that drop-off zone altogether so we can have more parking makes perfect sense. Move the drop-off back to the front of the school. So I really think we should be working together. It doesn't feel like that's what's happening at all. So thanks.
Thank you very much. Next, Scott Spielman.
On board, Scott Spielman. I live on San Felicia Way. I'm a long-term resident. I have 3 kids that graduated from Los Altos High School. I also received an award from this very group for being a friend of the school district. I love the district. I'm here because I'm concerned. I don't think the new design is a good design. They're trying to do too much, and parking issues remain and safety issues remain. The previous design that was implemented a year ago was a bad design. It was flawed. It was recognized by the city and others. And the redesign is trying to cram too much into a small street. And you as a board, I believe, should be really looking at the safety issues and the parking issues to be good neighbors for the school. And we've had great relationships with you. But over the last couple of years, it's been more of an issue, and particularly now with enrollments and construction and on it goes. So I want to ask you as a board to work not only with the school, Los Altos High School and its representatives, but the city and the residents. You have gotten some great recommendations from residents tonight. They want to make this successful. And we're concerned, many of us as residents, that this new design is flawed and it's not gonna promote bicycle safety and solve the problems that are there. So you have an opportunity to speak up now. And the residents want to support you and make you successful and make this a safe implementation. So please engage us. We're willing to support you. You've gotten consultants tonight from residents. They couldn't have been paid any more than a consultant, or they should have been paid what the consultants for the city made. But they're great recommendations. Please listen to them. And so I want to urge you going forward that engage the residents, listen to us, involve us, and don't take here's the city design as if it's gospel. It's not. It needs to be improved. That street, in summary, you cannot have 2 bicycle lanes, 2 traffic lanes, a buffer, and parking on Jordan. It's just way too much. So it needs to be simplified and made much more safe. And the residents that care in the feeder streets need to be recognized for the parking issues that are there. So thank you for hearing us tonight.
Thank you. All right, next, Peter Johnson.
I'm Peter Johnson. I live at Fontainebleau Terrace, which is right down over here. And my son, when he attended Los Altos High School, both of them actually drove their car. So that they could go out to lunch with their friends or do whatever. There something when I count, and I drive this road frequently, I drive up this way and I come back from the JCC after I work out, and I drive one of these roads, and I always count every day, 2 or 3 times a day during the school session, how many cars are on the streets. Typically, something like anywhere from 20 to 40 will be parked up each one of these streets on the side each day. These neighborhoods have become the surplus parking for the high school. I don't know whether you're aware of this, but some years ago, before the construction, when the south side of the school was the problem for parking, the city gave all those streets on the south side no parking signs. So basically, even the ones on the east side of the school, east-south side, these all have no parking signs. Maybe it's just on the end and they allow parking in the center. Well, these streets haven't been so lucky. So I've been to the high school a couple of times and I've talked to them and I said, hey, look, guys, you really need to figure out what you're going to allow for surplus parking. Does a student really have a right to drive his car to school every day? I bet you, if you basically restrict parking out here and they couldn't, and they had to walk a half a mile to the school, I'll bet you still have just about as many kids come to school, or they carpool, or they do something else. There are so many cars here that even if you open up the East Street, and I went in there and counted the spaces, I walked the back of the construction barricades and so on, and you opened up some of these other places, maybe the tennis courts are different, even though I personally hate to see that space taken up for cars. You still have a heck of a problem, a big problem. And as I said to the city the other day, if you can realign this any way you want, and some people will accept it, some people think it's not good, it's just putting it back to the old way, which is it's going back to the old way, and nobody liked it. Why is it going there? Doesn't make any sense. So basically, what I'm saying here is that there's 2 jobs. You've got to realign that street, you've got to get it right. And you also got to figure out what you're going to do with the parking in the long term so that these residents aren't burdened. And when we say burden, what you haven't heard tonight is all of the telephone mailboxes that have been blocked, where the mail doesn't get delivered, where the trash never gets picked up. Because, and it's just all the time, people are coming out, finding their driveways blocked by all the parents that are waiting to get in and pick up their kids. This is disgraceful, especially when the south side at this point is completely protected. So I said to the city the other day, and I've met with several city council members, I said, either pull all the south side signs out or take this whole area and throw signs, no parking, just like we've done on the south side. You can't treat some of the taxpayers one way and treat the others the other way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I don't know, Mike, do we have more questions for Mike, based on what we heard? Anything that you wanna?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate, I agree with the residents that, having the cars right next to the bicycles and parking, especially with new drivers, I agree, the cyclists are gonna get bored. I mean, that works for experienced drivers. It's a common, use to have cars buffer, be used as a buffer for a bike lane, but I think that requires drivers who are looking out for bicyclists. And we're talking about drivers who are 16 years old. So I don't think when I look at this design, the cycle track, it's where students, it's next to the high school. But there's no place for parking in the current design. So I think something has to give, I agree. And I just can't support a design where bicyclists are gonna get bored, even if there's only 7 of them right now. That's a serious accident for that bicyclist. So
The question, so the kids parking along these perpendicular roads to Jordan, all these, is that something that's new that's happening, or that's been in the last maybe few years, or is that just been going on for? I don't know if anybody can answer that.
Way worse.
It's just gotten worse because of and mainly because of the students, the number of students, basically population of students, or just.
It used to have 200 parking spaces for the students
That's
in
what-
1999, and it went down to 150.
You've got 330 spaces now. Originally, you had a much smaller school, when you had 200 parking spaces for students. Now you have a much larger school, and you've got 62 spaces because the faculty and staff has added so much, and they're giving spaces automatically. So it's just completely changed the character of this. And as I said, years ago, whenever those signs were put up on the south side before the construction, the problem was when the kids couldn't find a place to park, they went into the, south side streets. And that's where they put their cars. One of the things you'll see on the south side streets where parking is not prohibited by sign, the residents in some of those areas, they've all taken to put cones outside their houses because basically they need relief too. So this is a real problem. This is not, and that's why I say you can solve the lining, but you got to solve the parking if you want to say this job is done.
Okay, great, thank you. All right.
Well, I would like
Yeah.
to say, I think the new one is better than the one they currently have. And I still don't think the new one is adequate. And I probably agree that it's too much at once. The thing is, you said the new traffic guy has only been there a month. And perhaps he's trying too hard to satisfy everybody at once and come up with something rather than go through more of a process to gather several competing designs and come up with something that's the best on Jordan for one. But then for two, we do need to probably have more spaces. And and Mike presented some of that. I would like to know a comparison about how many parking places we have at Mountain View, because we don't seem to have this problem much anymore at Mountain View compared to Los Altos. And is there some way we can compare how we solve part of the problem over there compared to what we're trying to do at Los Altos? I just think it needs more work. I just don't think we're ready to say this is our solution.
My one, sorry.
So I have one question for you, Mike. For these considerations, are these going to be dependent on what the passing of the city's recommendation?
Yeah,
Or are we thinking we should move forward with this?
the considerations are kind of parallel paths, right? The no fee for student parking, once construction's done, reinstituting the staff spots we lost, recalibrating the number, right? Like we talked about, there's visitor spots in both the main lot and the student services lot. So reducing that down to a smaller number of visitor spots, those will happen regardless of a striping adjustment or plan on Chardon. So one question I was, when the resident said that basically the student parking isn't utilized. I mean, I don't know if that's what percentage. Do we have any numbers? Do we know like on? Yeah, I mean, I have there's 90 permits sold. I don't know the utilization on a daily basis. I guess maybe is it maybe not tonight, but maybe we can find out how many. If I don't know if somebody can go out there and count. Just maybe on average or something, we can figure out how many. What are we thinking?
The kids would rather park on our streets than park in the main parking lot because it's too much trouble to get out. And they can also go there during their lunch breaks and gather around, throw trash on the ground, go back to class, or they can go easier out the side streets. So it's totally being underutilized.
So it sounds like there's like a couple of problems. One is the number of spaces. And then two is this trying to find a more, I mean, it's difficult, right? But I mean, my kid went to Los Altos and it's always been an issue getting in and out of that parking lot. So trying to figure out some more creative solution to make it easier. I'm not sure how you do that because I'm not a traffic engineer, but I think having a conversation, you and Phil having a conversation with a traffic engineer and really trying to figure out how we can make that easier. I think would, and then I think would just encourage more students to actually, because if we have 90 permits, let me just check the numbers, then we should have a pretty full parking lot, right? Check the numbers. What are the numbers? Oh, I took them. And then also you have 31 EVs. Do we have numbers on how many EVs we have?
The EV's only for teachers.
Right, but do we have 31 EVs, so they're being fully utilized? Okay, they're being fully used, that's good. Okay, so yeah. So yeah, if we have 90, I guess there is an underutilization problem, because to me, if we have 90 permits and only 62 spaces, if people are actually parking there, students would be coming and complaining to us, right, that there aren't enough parking spaces, but they're not. So, and they're paying for parking right now, right? You pay, it's not that much, but you pay a nominal fee. So I'm not sure that, I think we could try to make it free, because free has a special value, but I also think that people are already buying parking permits and not using them based on the fact that we have 62 spaces and 90 permits.
Maybe something we have to look at, but okay. Bill, anything? Okay.
I think we heard,
That's good. Yeah, I think we heard it's very good. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much for coming out.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right, we'll go to our next item. Our next item.
Wait, Sanjay, so what are we doing? Does that mean that you guys are gonna pursue it further with the city and also review Mike's plans and get some more data? I mean, where do we stand?
Yeah, so the next is, Phil and I, we're gonna have another meeting with the city, and, so Phil and I will discuss it, and, we'll have another meeting with the city. We have to arrange that. So this is mainly an informational, item for the agenda, just to get information and to bring the rest of the board up to date on this issue. So if you have questions or something, you can always email to Phil and I, and, and that's fine. Thanks. Okay, so next item, the second reading and approval of the 23-24 school safety plans. So.
No. Oh. This is the second reading. This was brought March 18th to the board for first reading, and we did not receive comments other than those that were brought forward at the board meeting, which included questions about district office safety and other general safety items that we are discussing internally as a staff. These are the three mandatory safety plans brought forward for with our recommendation of approval.
And this is, so this is an action.
Correct.
It isn't.
Correct.
I move that we approve the three plans.
Okay, so let me check if there's any questions first. Yeah, Catherine's ready to go. It's late for her.
Well, we can.
Ready to adjourn.
No,
Yeah, she's ahead. She's like, all right, it's late for me.
well, I mean, technically, parliamentary wise, that you can have the motion and then have the questions, or you can have the questions and then.
I know. Anyway, so, all right, so we definitely have a motion by Catherine. Any comments or questions, anybody?
For the sake of discussion, I'll second.
Second, got Phil will second. Yeah, any discussion? Questions about it? No, I think it's board is silent. All right, so motion by Catherine, second by Phil. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Okay, all right, so that's the end of our business action items. Next is so date and time and place of the next meeting. When is that?
May 6th.
May 6th. May 6th is our next meeting. Good. Okay. And any legislative update? No, that's time. Okay. All right. Board suggestions for future board reports and meetings?
I don't have a suggestion for a meeting per se, but I know that Amy needs to know who's going to go to what graduation. Are we going to think about it and say that next time, or we're going to divide it up now?
We can discuss it now. Yeah, we can just do it right now. So Catherine, go ahead. Which one do you want to attend?
Well, I went to Mountain View this past year, so I'll go to Los Altos this year.
Okay, so Catherine's Los Altos. Any Phil?
I'll go to Los Altos.
Los Altos, okay.
I'll do Mountain View.
The Mountain View, okay.
I guess I'm left with Los Altos then.
Oh, so that's fine. So three of you, then I'll join Esme at Mountain View. Okay. Sounds good. Okay, great. And so now we have a motion to adjourn.
Quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Amy, could you make sure that the rows are really there for 5 people?
That's why I was asking.
I
you
have
all if you
mine.
wanted me to get the ones cleaned we have here, or do you prefer, because I think Los Altos look like this week, and then you can't order from Johnston's anymore. So,
So if you could check to make sure there are 5 rows with the right.
I have one. So I have the one last year that Debbie
have-
ordered.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
I know there was storage.
Yeah, so we checked it supposedly.
Our name, Bill
Yeah.
has his name, but I didn't see it be done. I'll check.
You heard it here.
Yes. Yeah, supposedly they would have our names on them or something.
I'm not sure if I got the right hood, because I don't think I got a master's. Hood or, not a hood, the thingy, but, yeah.
Well, I'll check with you all about what degree level and then I'll know what to look for. And then I think, Tracy, you guys are closing this week, right? Your orders?
I was like looking at, gifts and I was like, I didn't get that one. But she has a really fancy one. She's as a doctor. Yes. She has a cap and everything. Yes.
Okay,
All
I
right.
get a motion to adjourn.
Oh, that should be Catherine's job.
Exactly. Catherine?
I move we adjourn.
All right, motion by Catherine,
Second.
and second by Esme. All those in favor?
Aye.
0. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Ciao. Great meeting.
2 hours later.
Okay.
All right. But that was really informative. I had no idea.
Yeah,
Parking,
I
yeah.
know, it's crazy. It's good to hear them, because if
Yeah.
email doesn't do it justice.
Exactly,
To hear them
exactly.
more.
Yeah, that was really helpful.
Huh?
There's a lot of.
Yeah.